Hey, welcome. Good evening. Welcome to the Jinn&Tonic show on Friday, the 20th of January, 2017. And if you're on here live, you will have possibly heard in the news that Donald Trump has been sworn in as the 45th president of the United States about 3 hours ago, give or take. And so a new beginning in the US. So that will be interesting to see. So we will just wait for a few people to join us so that we can begin the discussion. Hopefully we'll get some people in and on the discussion. I'm not sure why it's not showing up. It should be. Why is this not showing up now? There we go. Now it's showing up. That's better. Hopefully we will get a few people joining us. So let's keep an eye out. There we go. We have some people joining. Welcome to those who are joining us now for this Jinn&Tonic show. So do pop something in the chat. Hey, Kev, stop spamming. Hello, welcome. Feel free to join in on the chat. Hopefully you can see the link in the description there that will allow you to join in. The sort of hosting system that Ike gave us didn't seem to be working, so I've put the actual long link into the description. If you look in the description of the video, you will see the link there. I will copy and paste it again and pop it in here so that you can join the show. And then I've at least got somebody to speak with, because I think it's an interesting day today. So maybe we'll talk a little bit about that and what that might mean for the rest of the world, in particular Muslims and Islam, with Mr. Trump, or now President Trump, being sworn in about 3 hours ago. So I'm sure people will have some thoughts on that. There's nothing prepared per se today, but there is something that, at least one thing that I'm interested in talking about, and hopefully I will get some company in the Hangouts tonight that we can talk about, because I think it's something that isn't clearly understood, and probably wasn't clearly understood even by myself until sort of more recently, and hope I'll be able to elucidate my thoughts. And the particular thing that I'm interested in talking about tonight is knowledge and belief. You know, so often when I'm engaged with people in Speaker's Corner, or if you watch some of the recorded conversations from Speaker's Corner, you will hear, you know, is this your belief? Is this a claim to knowledge? You know, and I'm not sure many people are clear on the difference between the two. And I was just recently listening to a video that sort of helped clarify it for me, and hopefully it'll be useful for everybody on here. Yeah, Trump 2016. So let me give an analogy, because it's something, and this is credit to Matt Delahanty. If you don't know who he is as an atheist, as an agnostic, or a non-believer, I do encourage you to, something wrong with the link. When I'm clicking on the link here, it's taking me straight to the, I'll give it to you again. 1 second, let me just copy it again. This is now straight out of the Hangout that I'm in, so there we go. Oh, how's that then? That looks like a different link. Try that one there. Try this one. See if that works. Weird. I thought that was the link for this evening. Copied and pasted it before. Hopefully that will work now, and we'll see if we get anybody joining on that particular link now. So there we go. Abu, good evening. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. How are you doing?
How are you today? Yeah, I'm pretty
fine.
good. Obviously, it's
I'm gonna
big
be.
day for those in the US.
I'm gonna
Sorry,
be.
carry on. What did you say?
I'm gonna be busy with a thing for a while. Just in the beginning, I have to finish a work.
Yeah, sure.
But I will
No
join
worries.
in soon.
Yeah, sure. Welcome, Stops. How are you, my good sir? Stops, are you there? Can you hear me? There you go. How are you, my good sir?
Very well. I'm just angry with Google because once again they've played. It's crazy. All the comments are totally unusable now. This one has a different format again. I don't know why they don't stop fiddling.
Are you talking about something on the channel?
No, in general.
Oh, okay, in general.
Because they keep fiddling with everything, even if it's not broken. And the Google Effects app will no longer work.
Yes, I remember them saying that. Yeah, I've seen that come up.
And the Google Effects was the only thing that was of any value. So I don't know. The one thing that made YouTube great was the comments. Now they fucked that up. I've just imploded.
Oh, okay, good. Glad you got that off your chest. So, as I say, interesting day today with Trump being sworn. Oh, that's nice music you've got there. I can hear that clearly. Is that the TV? Oh, there we go. He's muted himself. Okay, so the one thing.
These are the effects.
Right. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I don't even use them, but maybe I should have had a look at them anyway. Probably a good thing now since they're going to be removed. I like that. So, Stops, one of the things I was interested in talking about, and I wanted to, maybe get your input as well, and people in the chat as well, is what seems like a confusion, and possibly even for myself up until recently, I hope, between knowledge and belief. Because I hear a lot, I hear these two banded around at Speaker's Corner and in videos and so forth of people talking, do you believe that or do you know that? Those sort of things. And I think there seems to be a confusion there. And the reason this sort of came up for me is because I was watching a video sometime this week with Hamza speaking to Andy, the agnostic. He calls himself an agnostic in Speaker's Corner. And he was asking the question of atheists or agnostics, is it reasonable to believe in God? And so obviously I've had a few thoughts on that. And maybe you start, Stops. Perhaps you can, if you've got a few thoughts on whether it's reasonable to believe in God, and then I'll also elucidate my thoughts on the difference between belief and knowledge. And I'll give an example to show how, there's a clear difference.
Well, I always use the example of my car to just demonstrate. I mean, it's so straightforward. I don't know why people have a problem with this. If I go and I say, okay, I believe I left my car in the garage, so I believe my car is in the garage. Now, if I don't have a camera, if I don't go there and look at it, I don't know for sure if it's still there the next morning, because maybe my wife's car didn't start and she took mine, or maybe somebody stole it, or a hole opened up and the car is gone. So I believe my car is in the garage, but I don't have certainty at this moment in time. Now, unless I go there, I will not have that certainty. But if I go there, I open the garage, I touch the car, then I can verify that the car is there, and then I know it is there. But unless I go there and verify it, I can't know it. So I believe it. And that's how easy it is.
Okay, so a couple of, you're 100% right on that. A couple of little nuances that I'll throw in, and you can give me your thoughts. We can use the car. Well, can we use the car? I suppose we can, but I'm going to use a different example, and maybe it'll map straight onto the car as well. But here's another example. And again, this is credit to Matt Dillahunty from the Atheist Experience. He's obviously quite a knowledgeable guy, and he used the gumball analogy. So you hopefully you're aware, and listeners are aware too, of in the US and most Western countries, they've got these sort of see-through things where they've got these sweets, or they call them the US gumballs, inside this see-through canister, let's call it. And so when somebody, the knowledge claim is either there's an even number of gumballs or there's an odd number of gumballs in the machine. It's one or the other. It can't be, can't be both. So there's either odd gumballs or there's an even number of gumballs. what's the default position when somebody says to you, are there odd number of gumballs or are there even number of gumballs? What would be your belief around the number of gumballs in the gumball machine? What would you say?
Oh, this is a real question. I thought this was a rhetorical question.
No, I want to get your, well, in a sense, but I want to get your view on it, and then we go from there. So would you say...
I don't know.
Correct. So it's the neutral position about a knowledge claim. So we have a neutral position about the claim, either they're odd or they're even. If somebody comes to you, if I came to you, Stops, and I said, with no evidence, I just asserted to you that the number of gumballs in the machine is even. What would you say about the proposition that I've given you? This is not about the knowledge claim of whether there is odd or even. This is my claim about my belief, whether they odd or even. And I say to you, Stops, there's an even number of gumballs in the machine. What would be your position on that?
Sure, that's possible. Why do you believe it?
Correct. Okay, so let me make it easier then, because with my proposition, it's either the proposition is true or false, the proposition I'm giving you, but that's separate because that's my belief proposition. So here it gets a little bit different in the sense that we know in the machine there's either even or odd number, but I'm claiming that there's an even number. Are you going to accept my claim? Are you going to reject my claim? Or are you going to say, I don't know?
Well, the facts haven't changed, okay? Just because you believe something doesn't make it more true or less true. So if I look at what the situation is, it hasn't changed. So it must necessarily still be, I don't know, unless, now this is always the difference that I make with people, unless you have access to information that I don't have.
Yes, fair enough. But let's assume that he's coming to you with what you consider no evidence. So he comes in, he says, I assert that the number of gumballs in the gumball machine is even.
Well, you're 50% right. I mean, it could be, it could not be. I don't know.
And here's where I'd add something extra onto this. It depends for me on in this particular case, you can either accept the claim, you can reject the claim, or you could say, I don't know about your claim. But the I don't know is in a sense a rejection, because you either accept it or you reject his proposition. This is not because he doesn't have knowledge. He's claiming a belief. He's claiming a belief about the knowledge. So you either accept his belief or you don't. And I think this is where agnosticism and atheism, sometimes people have a challenge.
Yeah, but hang on.
Now, for me,
Rob, there's one other thing. No, it is not a rejection, because I can only reject what has been established. So saying I don't know is still neutral.
Good.
Because
Thank you
the
for
one
bringing
thing
that up.
I can do is, yes, you can believe it, and yes, you are true, or you are right, or you are not right. It doesn't mean that you are wrong. It means that you are right or not right. So the dichotomy is different.
Good. I'm glad you brought that up. And this was something that I sort of got a light bulb moment on recently. So in actual fact, I would suggest that we tweak that a little bit, because what's happened is you've kind of fallen into you are talking about his belief. His belief is either true or it's not true. His belief about the gumballs, either what he says is true or it's not true. But that is different to what we know about the gumballs. We know there's gumballs in the gumball machine, and it's either odd or even. The fact that he says it's even with no evidence, he just comes to you and says, Stops, it's even. My position and Matt's position is that you must reject that. However, if you reject his claim about the gumballs, that does not mean you think it is odd. So think about that for a moment. This was the light bulb moment for me. There's odd or even number of gumballs in the gumball machine. Somebody says, no, there are even numbers. They provide no evidence. They just assert there's even numbers. You can justifiably reject that claim until there's evidence that he says, I've counted them or whatever. But that does not mean that you reject the actual number of gumballs in the machine. That doesn't mean that you think that they are odd. It just means that you reject his assertion about the gumballs. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is now map this onto theists. There's either a God or there's no God. That I think we can all accept. Everybody who's thought even for 5 seconds will accept that there's either a God or no God. That's the knowledge claim. Now, none of us know for sure. So the default position on that, unless you have overwhelming evidence one way or the other, would be I don't know about the God claim. Does a God exist or not? But now a theist comes and he says God exists. And he attempts to bring evidence and reasons which we reject. So from our point of view, a theist is saying God exists without evidence to justify that. So I believe that we are justified in rejecting that claim immediately. That does not mean that we say there is no God. That just means that we reject the claim that's made that there is a God. So we are rejecting his belief claim about the knowledge. Hopefully that makes sense. This was a light bulb for me. So when somebody like myself and Matt and a number of other people say we're agnostic atheists, what we mean is the knowledge claim, whether there is a God or there's no God, we have a neutral position on, like the even or odd gumballs. We've got a neutral position. We don't know for sure one way or the other. But when the theist comes with his knowledge, with his belief about that knowledge claim, we can reject that belief because it's unjustified. And I would take it a step further and say that it's an extraordinary claim. So the next bolt-on for me would be if somebody came to me, and I use this example in Speaker's Corner, if somebody came to me and said, Rob, I've got a dog at home. That's a fairly mundane, ordinary claim. I'm likely to accept that belief without asking them for evidence.
Well, it's inconsequential.
Okay. Correct. So there's that part of it as well. So there's the additional bolt-on of what are the consequences, but the claim itself is very ordinary. So I'm likely to go, yes, I accept it. If he said to me, I've got a Ferrari at home, now it gets into the territory of I go, well, I don't know that. I'm not sure either way. Then I could claim sort of I'm not sure, because now it's the claim is elevated, for want of a better word. So I could go, well, show me. In that case, I'd probably reject his claim until he showed it to me. If he said he had a Ferrari, I mean, if he came in a $5,000 suit, I'm more likely, but that would have evidence to go with it. If he just walked with jeans and a t-shirt and he said, hey, Rob, I've got a £200,000 Ferrari at home, but I just come to Speaker's Corner, I'd go, I'm not sure on that one. I'd probably be more on the rejection side. There's a kind of a gray area there. It's still a relatively ordinary claim, but it's not as ordinary as the dog. But at the moment he comes to me with something extraordinary like a God, or like my particular example, which is, hey, Rob, I've got a fire-breathing flying dragon that talks and lives in my backyard at home, I'm immediately going to reject that claim. That doesn't mean that I say there is no dragon. It just means I reject the claim that he's asserting there is a dragon with no evidence. And so this is the whole thing that I wanted to get clear, if nothing else tonight, is around this belief and knowledge claim, because it gets thrown around a lot. And I think we need to be clear on an agnostic atheist is very much the position I'm in, and Matt's in, a number of other people. So one is to do with knowledge. The other is the belief around the knowledge, which is, in my case, it's the same as the Richard Dawkins scale. So I have a rejection of any God or gods in the traditional sense, religious sense in any case. And if I use Richard Dawkins' scale of 0, meaning I absolutely accept, or 1, I absolutely accept there's a God, to 7, I reject it out of hand, absolutely, I'm at a 6.9. So I can't absolutely say there's no gods, but I reject the claim that there is. So there's a difference. So I'm at a 6.9 on the belief scale. On the knowledge scale, I'd probably be 50% there, because there could be something out there. Just it's done a very good job of ensuring that the natural world appears to be all there is, but there could well be something sitting outside of the natural world, but we have no evidence to support that. So my belief around the knowledge claim is a rejection of the positive claim that theists make. But if somebody said to me, Rob, what do you think about the claim there's either a God or there isn't a God? I'd say, well, on that knowledge claim, I'm agnostic. But the moment you come and tell me there is a God, then I'm going to reject that claim until you can give me good evidence. and somebody in the chat says, exactly right, faith is pretending to know something that you don't know. So when typically in the word faith is used from a religious point of view, that's I would agree with that position. I can have faith in my wife. I can have faith in certain things in the natural world because of past experiences. But to have faith in something that we can't demonstrate, we can't even describe sufficiently well to know what it is, I think that's an unjustified faith. So when somebody like Hamza comes up to me or asks people, is my belief in God reasonable? I have to say no. Your belief in God is not reasonable from my point of view, because you haven't justified it. For you, you think you have because you believe you have good reasons and evidence. But if you ask me, what would I say from my non-belief in a God point of view? I have to say, from my point of view, your belief in a God is unreasonable. The fact that billions of people believe in a God doesn't make it more reasonable. One person could be right in the world and everybody else could be wrong. So it's not the ad populum fallacy of, the more people that believe something, therefore the more likely it is to be true. That can work. That can certainly work in the natural world. But when we come to extraordinary claims, then, as we've always heard, you need extraordinary evidence. So there's my little spiel. Feel free to give me your thoughts.
Well, I've opened like this for 5 years of Jinn&Tonic show, always explaining knowledge and belief and the difference, and that as an atheist, in the capacity, the human being has different facets, and one of those facets is that you are an atheist, and as in your capacity as an atheist, you don't believe anything. And this is what theists can't get their head around, that as an atheist, I don't believe anything, because the only thing that I do as an atheist is not believe something that other people say regarding gods, and that's it. That's all I do as an atheist. So when they do atheist author, and that's bullshit, that's an absolute nonsensical term, because all the atheist does, it just describes the absence of a belief regarding gods, and that's it. As a person, it's very, very different, but as an atheist, it's not. And this is what people can't understand.
I agree with you. I think that the term atheism is often confused, as you quite rightly pointed out, and I have done for 5 years, so no doubt it's very boring for you to say it again. But atheism is just the rejection of a single claim, which is the belief in a deity. And really, for me, it would be more specifically the belief in any of the monotheistic deities. I'm open to the possibility that there's something out there that's bigger than we are, let's say. I haven't seen any evidence that would make me believe that in this world, because everything that happens I would encompass as the natural world. So if there's jinns or if there's ghosts or whatever there might be that some people label supernatural, it's just unexplained events that are happening in the natural world. So for me, that encompasses the natural world. The only way we'd call something supernatural is if we could see outside of the natural world, or if a being of tremendous power poked his finger in or somehow twiddled the knobs or did something in this natural world and let us know that he was doing this from outside of our natural world. Otherwise, everything is inside this world. So I'm a methodological naturalist. I'm not a philosophical naturalist, so there's a difference. So the methodological naturalist is somebody that believes that we can only investigate the natural world, but we don't reject the possibility of something outside the natural world. Whereas a philosophical naturalist believes the natural world is all there is, full stop. There can never be anything outside of there. So I'm on the methodological naturalist view, and I'm an agnostic atheist. So that's my particular position.
Can I be a stickler?
Go ahead, sir. Please do.
Atheism. Where's the ism in atheism?
Where's the ism? I don't know. That's just obviously a term that people use, isn't it?
I know, and it's so wrong, because there is no ism in atheism.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. I suppose we are atheists, and it's a single claim, and they're making an ism around a single claim.
No, it's not a claim. This is exactly the point.
What I mean is, sorry, not a claim. It's our.
It describes the absence of a belief, and it does not describe any kind of an ism, what is traditionally known as an ism, because an ism always has a goal, an action, it follows, it does, and none of this applies to what the word atheist describes.
Okay, so there I would slightly disagree with you. I used to say the same, and once I got this analogy of the gumball machine down, it's not the absence of a belief, it's the rejection of the claim of somebody else's. So we do not believe in a God or gods.
Okay, but
Welcome,
it doesn't make a
Raven.
claim. There's no claim in itself.
Well, there is a claim in the sense that we are claiming that we don't believe somebody else's claim, but we're not
Yeah, but
making
that's
a
not a claim.
claim to knowledge.
No, that's not a claim. That is just that I'm saying, no, I don't believe what you believe. I'm not making a claim.
Yeah, but you're rejecting his claim, aren't you? So when he says there is
I'm
God,
not rejecting it. I'm not rejecting anything. I'm just saying I don't believe it. That is not rejecting something. I'm just saying I do not believe it. Would you like a glass of water? No, thank you. That is not a rejection.
In the chat, Kiv just wanted us to read out, faith is pretending knowing something one doesn't know. It just wants that to be read out.
Yeah,
I read that earlier.
Rob already
There was
did
something
that.
else.
Oh.
Raven,
something
you are
else he
way
wanted.
behind.
He wanted something else read out there, I think.
So no, I am not rejecting anything. If I say no, thank you, I would not like a glass of water at this moment in time.
Okay, but stops. Let's go back to the gumball machine then. So
the
if I
gumball
come to
machine
you,
doesn't have anything to do with atheism. There's no ism in a gumball machine.
no, but it's a reasonably good analogy for the theist position, because either there's a God or no God. Either the gumballs in the gumball machine are even or odd.
Okay.
Now you have somebody that comes to you. I come to you, stops, and I say the number of gumballs is even. What do you say to me?
I don't believe it. Or I ask, why would you believe it? What kind of information leads you to believe that this number is even?
I've had a vision that I think that the number of gumballs in the gumball machine is even.
Why would you do
What do
that?
you say to my belief claim?
Why would you do that?
Because I had a vision and it seemed very real to me. So I'm convinced that there's an even number of gumballs in the gumball machine.
Okay, cool. Prove it.
Do you accept my claim or do you reject
your
my
claim.
claim?
Prove it.
No. Okay. So then you haven't accepted it, because if you accept my claim, then I don't need to prove it. What I've just done is proof enough. So you have to reject my claim.
What I'm saying is I don't reject it. I don't say that you are wrong, which is what I would be doing if I were rejecting it. I don't say that you are wrong, because you might be right.
Okay, but that's a different thing. So there's a difference between saying I'm right and wrong and between rejecting my claim or accepting my claim.
Okay, rejection is negative, okay? Or not? It's not neutral.
Yes, no, it's not neutral. You reject my claim that the gumballs are even. That does not mean that you think the gumballs are odd.
No,
it just means
I'm
that
not
you're
rejecting.
my
No,
belief.
Rob, this is exactly the difference. I'm not rejecting it.
So what are you doing with my claim that the gumballs are
I'm
even?
questioning it. I'm not accepting it. But not accepting it
Okay,
is
so
not the same
not
as rejecting it.
No, it is. It is. Okay, so I'll give you the link to go and look at this. I thought the same.
I know
Well,
what
actually, I
Matt
didn't.
says. I know this, and I think it's flawed. It doesn't work.
So how is not accepting different from rejecting?
Well, the one is making a positive claim, the other one is not. Rejecting is making a positive claim. Rejecting is, I know that you are wrong. And it's not. I don't know whether that person is wrong. That person may well be right. If you come to me and you say it's even, I don't know whether you are right or wrong. So I will say, okay, prove it. Until you do such a thing, until you prove it, I will not go either way. I will not say yes or no. I am neutral.
I don't think you are, though. That's my point. Raven, maybe you can
totally
give us
neutral.
I don't.
No, Rob,
I don't
if
think you can
somebody
be
says to me that
neutral.
God exists, okay, cool. I don't know if a God exists.
Sorry, did someone just say my name?
No, maybe you can weigh in, because I think it's good this, because Stops is highly intelligent and maybe I'm entirely wrong, but I think we have a difference of opinion on whether.
I think
I think it's about terminology. It's about rejection.
I think you're not quite understanding what stop means, because I know what he means, and I absolutely 100% agree with him. What he's saying is he's not saying that he rejects it in the sense of, no, you're wrong. He's rejecting it in the sense that, well, you might be right, but I have no way to verify it. So think of it as being agnostic. He's not saying you're right. He's not saying you're wrong. You could be right, but I don't know for a fact because I haven't had it proven to me. I'm not saying you're lying. I'm just saying, you know, I don't know for a fact. He's agnostic.
Okay, but agnostic goes towards knowledge. When I come to you with
it's a knowledge claim.
Correct.
Saying that there's a certain amount or a certain quantity in a gumball machine is a knowledge claim. If Stop agrees with it, then he's taking it on faith that this person is giving him facts. He doesn't have to think that the person is necessarily a liar to withhold belief.
Rob, if just go back to the default position. What is the default position? I don't know. Now, making it it's even, or saying it's odd, or saying I don't know, does not change anything. It's still the default position. So I have not changed my position at all.
Okay, so
it'd be kind of like if you said to me that, oh, last night I had sex with my wife. I mean, okay, I don't necessarily have any reason to disbelieve you, but you know, I wasn't there in the room. It doesn't necessarily. That's not to say that I think you're lying about it. It's just that if I was to actually go with your claim, I'd be accepting it on faith because I have to
let's use that. That's not the best example, but let's use it, Raven. If I said that to you,
it's not the best example, but it's a very good example because of the circumstances of you actually having a wife and being married. You know, marriage usually entails sharing a bed, it usually entails a sexual relationship. So there's a very good chance that you have had sex with your wife at least once in your life. You know, maybe it was last night. I can't prove or disprove that. I have no reason to doubt your claim.
Or do you reject my claim?
Well, I don't really care. In this particular situation, unless I had actual reason to doubt it, I probably would just take it on faith that you're being honest.
Okay, you can use those words. You'd accept the claim, in other words. And I agree with you. I would do the same. If you said to me, I had sex with my girlfriend, I will accept the claim.
Before about dragons and dogs. You know, if someone told me we had a pet dog versus a pet dragon, if someone told me that, like, if some random stranger I'd never met before told me we had a pet dog, I would believe them. Now that is belief. I don't know them. I don't know if they have a pet dog, but
that goes towards the
actually taking them on their word. People have dogs. Dogs are bred to be human companions. Having them as pets is very common. I see it every day. They might be lying. They might not have a dog, but I would believe them if they told me I have a pet dog.
Yeah, and I would do the same. But that goes towards the let's call it the nature of the claim. That's an ordinary claim. If somebody came to you, Raven, and said, I have a pet dragon that flies, breathes fire, and I keep him in my backyard, and I keep him locked up, what would be your default position? Would you accept or reject the claim?
Aliens. I think dragons.
Would you accept or reject the claim?
I would accept it. I would accept it. But I don't think dragons are mythological supernatural beings. I think they're aliens from space.
Okay, so my position then is that you're unreasonable to accept that claim. That's exactly the same as what a theist does. They accept that there's a dragon there, so if a theist comes to me and says,
I wouldn't actually accept it. I was joking.
But you've got a good example because it relates exactly to what theists say. But going back to Stop's one.
The best example when it comes to dragons, the best examples with theists is confirmation bias. I think one of the examples I once gave was, you could try and prove that your dragon exists because of the ice caps. You know, like thousands of years ago, Smokey fought a race of ice giants, melted them with his fire breath, and the ice caps are the frozen remains. You know, but I mean, the obvious flaw in that is the naturalistic explanations for ice caps that have nothing to do with a race of ice giants being melted by a dragon's fire breath.
And we don't have any evidence of ice giants or anything like that. So again, I'd reject that claim. My default position is a rejection of that claim. And that's why I say my default position.
Well, the theist would say, no, we do it. The theist would actually say, no, we do have evidence of that claim because ice caps.
But we know we've got a naturalistic explanation for that. So we reject out of hand any other superfluous added on. We use the law of parsimony, and there's no evidence to support that. So I'm justified in rejecting that claim because it's unnecessarily complex and parsimonious. The parsimonious explanation is the natural processes that we can observe and we've got evidence of. So I would reject that.
If you don't believe it, when you die, smoking will burn you.
Possibly, but there's no good reason to believe that, so I'll reject that claim. That doesn't mean I say that smoking those giants didn't exist. That's the difference, and I think that's where I think we've got a disagreement here. Is the claim about the gumballs?
So why would you actually say the giants didn't exist? If you actually, because we're at a stage in we're in a stage in our understanding now. We have a fairly good definition of what life is. We know what to look for to see if something was once alive. If you can actually study the remains of, if you can actually study the ice caps and see if there's nothing biological in them, see that there's nothing to ever think they were once alive, let alone animate and walking around, and you have very good reason for rejecting it. I mean, I suppose you could just use the magic card, oh, it was magic. They were magically animated or something. But because we do have like DNA and genetics and things like that, you would have very good reasons for rejecting that these were ever life forms.
Let me just read a few of the comments here. So Kiv says, religion use faith. Belief is not special for just religion. If the method used to come to belief is not reliable, then the claim itself is possibly not true. Epistemology 101. Don't confuse belief with faith. No need to make it more complicated. Okay, so I guess maybe it's useful to know what the definition of some of the words are. So for me, so faith, for example, is belief without evidence or good reasons. Belief itself is the acceptance of a proposition is true or likely true. So it's my acceptance of a proposition being true or likely true. And then knowledge, I've got it here somewhere. There's a good one for knowledge.
Well, that's not the way I define it. If something is true, then it's true. I never say I believe something that I know for a fact to be true. I simply say that I accept reality.
Yeah, but remember, knowledge is a subset of belief. You believe first, and then knowledge just falls underneath that. It's not the other way around. You always believe something because you can believe something without knowing it. Correct? You can believe something to be true without having the actual knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah. So belief is the overriding concept, bubble, if you want to call it that, and then knowledge fits inside underneath that. So you can believe something without actually having good reasons to. And then once you get the knowledge, you can either adjust your belief or it will corroborate your belief.
Well, this goes back to my example.
But I don't think I've ever believed anything without having some reason to. Even when I was a little kid, believing.
No, Raven, that's not the point. You were not there because in the beginning I made an example where you don't know whether your car is in the garage, but you are going and approaching the garage with the belief that your car is inside. Otherwise, you wouldn't go to the garage. And it's only when you open it that you really know that there is a car inside the garage. But you first have the belief that it is inside the garage. That's it.
Okay, so Stops, if I came to you in the morning, you'd put your car in the garage, and I came to you in the morning and I said to you, Stops, your car is not in the garage. What would be your position on my claim about your car being in the garage? Because we know it's either in the garage or it's not in the garage. I come to you.
It remains neutral.
Okay, no, but that's where I think that's where there's a difference for us here. You can be neutral about the knowledge claim, about the car being in the garage or not, but you can't be neutral about my position.
Of course I can, because
I'm giving you
information source. I don't know where you get it from. The thing is, what is the definition of reject for you?
So the definition of reject is not accepting a claim.
That's different
or
from
a proposition.
No, mine is stronger. Mine is an active. Mine is the act of not accepting it. In other words, it's a positive act against the claim. So for me, it's a lot stronger.
My definition of rejecting is literally rejecting. It's not just about not believing or not knowing. It's like, no, that's wrong. That's bullshit. Fuck off.
Yeah, I think yeah, exactly. Okay, it's reject is stronger for me. That's maybe where the difference comes in.
That's just an intuitional thing, which is fine, but that's the same as not accepting it. Just not accepting is a polite way of saying it. Reject just sounds more blunt or forceful.
There are plenty of things that I don't accept. The reason I don't accept them is because I don't have enough knowledge to know whether or not they are true or not. I don't accept them, but I also don't reject them. I'm sort of neutral. Usually this is where I don't have enough interest to research.
Okay, so that's where I think the slight confusion comes in from, which I just got the light bulb recently myself. I think you're confusing their belief and knowledge, and I think that's why you're so eager to go, I don't know, I want the neutral position. You could be neutral about the knowledge claims. So remember, you can be neutral about whether the car's in the garage or not. I come to you with a negative claim, let's call it in this case.
No, because I've believed things before. I know the difference between what I'm saying and belief, because I've experienced both.
All right, so I come to you and I say to you, because now you don't know Stops, I say to you, Raven, Stops' car is not in the garage. What is your response to my claim about the knowledge of the car being in the garage or not? I say I bring you the negative claim. The car is not in the garage. What do you say to that?
I don't know you to necessarily be untrustworthy, so I'd probably accept it unless I looked in the garage and saw for myself it was there. I might think that he was out driving, or maybe it's getting maintenance. Could be this, could be that.
Exactly the point. This goes back to the claim, I've had sex with my wife. You cannot accept that claim, but you can only reject it if you really have a reason. And this is where Raven is right. You need to have a reason to reject it. Whereas not accepting the claim, you don't need a reason. To reject it, you need a reason, I think. This is my stance.
If you were 13 years old and told me that you personally had an orgy with the entire cheerleading team, I would not believe you. I would actually reject that.
Okay, but why would you reject that, Raven? Why?
Because I think I have very good reasons for rejecting the claims of a 13-year-old boy that he personally nailed the entire cheerleading squad.
What is your reasons?
Experience.
Do you not think that he's making an extraordinary claim and therefore the default position is rejecting his claim out of hand? He's making an extraordinary claim. If a 13-year-old came to you and said, I shagged the cheerleader's sister who's 13, would you accept that?
Well, it might be true, but I would also look for tells. I mean, you have to also keep in mind, as human beings, we don't just communicate this way. We look for ticks, we look for tells. There's body language, facial expression, tones of voice.
But you're bringing extra things. You're looking for evidence. I appreciate you looking for evidence, but what we're talking about here is the semantics of the actual.
Well, that's not really evidence. That's like actually, I don't know. Maybe
if you were blindfolded and the 13-year-old came to you and said, if you were blindfolded, you could get no cues. All I want to know is about his claim. He comes to you and he makes a claim that he's had sex with a cheerleader's 13-year-old sister. What do you say to that? You're not looking for tells. What is your position on his claim about that? That's the only thing I want to know.
I'd be neutral. I wouldn't believe or disbelieve.
But that's not possible on the claim. That's what I'm saying. You're trying because you're confusing.
You're insisting it. The thing is, you're insisting it's not possible. It is possible to be neutral. It is possible to. Well, I mean, I suppose in a way you are right, because by not actually believing it, I'm not actually believing it. So you're right in that. I suppose the way I'm thinking of it is I'm thinking of it with the definition of rejection I gave. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
With the definition of rejection that I gave, then I'm right. I wouldn't necessarily believe it or disbelieve it. I'd be neutral. But if you want to take it in the sense that by not believing that automatically means disbelieving, then sure, I disbelieve.
All right. So there's a claim that a 13-year-old boy had sex with a 13-year-old girl. On that position, on that knowledge position, he either did or he didn't. Correct? You can't be.
The thing is, though, in my area where I've grown up, I mean, 13-year-olds having sex is really common. I mean, losing your virginity anywhere between 12 and 15 is just normal.
All right. Should we use an example where you can't get out of it by saying those sort of things. How about the gumball machine? Because you can't use other ways of escaping answering the question if I use the gumball machine. So a gumball machine has either got odd or even number of gumballs. I say to you it has an even number. What do you say to my claim?
I'd shrug and say maybe.
Okay, I'm saying it has an even number.
Okay, I'd shrug and say maybe.
So you're accepting my claim?
No, I'm shrugging and saying maybe.
So you don't know?
Right.
Okay, good. So that's where I think the difference comes in. I'm not sure we're getting there because I think I'm missing it here, or I'm not clearly putting it across. When you say
Rob,
you don't know,
look, Raven said exactly the same thing when I said. I'm actually chuckling that he actually put the shore in front, just like I did. The thing,
I think you're both wrong
rejection.
because you're confusing knowledge and belief. That's why.
No,
that's why.
No. The thing is that reject is something that you can only do to something that has been established. So you can reject a God once a God has been established, but if a God has not been established, you cannot reject a God. That's the difference.
I agree with that. That's a knowledge claim. Are we in agreement?
No, it's not a knowledge claim.
No, because you're going to have a difference between. Okay, I'm going to try and get very close. Okay, what color are my eyes?
I can't see there. Looks like a blue color. I can't see.
You see?
Blue, maybe green. I can't see.
Blue. Right. Now you can actually see for a fact my eyes are blue. So this isn't. This is knowledge. This isn't belief. You don't believe my eyes are blue. You know it for a fact. This isn't belief. It's knowledge.
Because I've established it, correct?
Right.
But either your eyes are blue or they're not.
Right, but you've just seen for a fact that they are blue. So it's not. To accept my eyes are blue, it's not belief. It's knowledge.
Yes, it is now because I've verified that. But if you sat where you are now and you said to me, Rob, my eyes are blue. Either that knowledge claim is true or it's false. Do we agree on that at least?
No, Rob, make it easier. Raven, why don't you tell Rob that you're not wearing pants?
I could take them off if you like.
No, but the thing is, I am claiming I am not wearing pants. Rob, what is your attitude towards that?
So what do you mean my attitude?
Well, what is your response if I tell you I'm not wearing pants?
So I will say to you, I accept that claim or I reject that claim. I can only one of the other. I would say I reject that claim.
No, you can either accept it or not accept it. You can't accept it or reject it because you don't have any information.
No, okay, that's where we're sticking. Not accepting and rejecting is the same thing. It's just
no. You see, this is what I'm saying. We're talking about semantics here, where you are saying rejecting and not accepting is the same thing, and I maintain that rejecting has a positive attitude towards something not being the case, which is not the case if you either accept it or you don't accept it. It's the same thing as guilty and not guilty. It doesn't mean that the person is innocent.
I agree. But that's not the same thing because remember, we've got a knowledge claim.
No, but this is exactly what you're doing. You are saying not guilty is the same as innocent. It's not.
They mean the same thing, don't they?
No, they don't.
Not guilty does not mean the same as innocent. Not at all.
In a court of law?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't in a court of law. Who told you this?
Well, they don't say it's innocent, do they? They just say you're guilty or not guilty.
Exactly, because innocent and not guilty are very different things.
But the point of a law, like, if our legal system was reversed, if instead of innocent until proven guilty, you were guilty until proven innocent, then the courts would actually have to establish innocence. But we don't have guilty until proven innocent. We have innocent until proven guilty. A court does not say that this person is actually innocent. It doesn't say they haven't done it. It just says we don't have sufficient evidence to prosecute them for it. Could have done it.
Okay, but that's a completely different thing because
How?
What you're talking about with the gumball.
You just said that not guilty is the same as innocent.
Okay, go back to you like the gumball machine. Go to the gumball machine.
Yeah,
if
let's go
I'm
to the
saying
gumball
it's odds and you're not accepting it, you're not saying I'm wrong.
I'm rejecting it.
Yeah, but
But
you're
that
saying
does not
I'm wrong.
mean-
If you reject it, you are saying I'm wrong.
Ah, okay, so that's where the confusion comes in. Good, okay. Let's go back to the beginning again, because that's I think where it is. I'm rejecting
I think
your
I actually said that earlier. Like, actually, I'm actually saying, no, you're wrong. It's bullshit. Fuck off. Like, I actually said that flat out.
Okay, I think you're still both missing it. Let me try it again. No,
Rob, nobody is missing it. It's
Okay.
a different
Yeah.
definition of reject. You are saying to reject is neutral, and I'm saying no, it is not. Just the same way as innocent is not the same as not guilty. You are saying they are the same. You are saying
I agree
not
with you.
guilty is innocent, and to reject something is the same as not accepting it. And I'm saying no, there is a difference.
I stand corrected on the not guilty and the innocent in a court of law. I stand corrected on that point. Let me go back to the gumball machine from the beginning and see if I can explain it easier for you.
It's not the gumball machine. It's the word reject. It's semantics. It has nothing to do with the example. It's the way that you are using the word reject, or the way that I am using the word reject. For me, not accepting is not the same as rejecting, because for me, rejecting is an activity.
Okay, but that's just a personal opinion, isn't it?
That's my definition. That is my definition, how I used to reject. Rejection means that I am actively doing something. Like if I don't accept a person, it means I am neutral towards that person. But if I reject that person, I am somehow at odds with that person, and there's something about that person that I don't like. So for me, rejection is much stronger than not acceptance.
But remember something, you are rejecting their positive claim. You're not rejecting the knowledge claim. I think that's the thing that we're getting hung up on here.
No,
I agree
I am not accepting. No, Rob, I am not accepting their positive claim. I'm not rejecting it because they could be right. And this is why I'm not rejecting it. I'm merely not accepting it because they don't have any evidence.
Okay. All right, I think we'll agree to disagree. Because we can go through it more, but I don't think we'll get further. For me, not accept and reject on a particular claim that somebody makes is the same thing. It's different when you are talking about actual knowledge. When there's a God or no God, then it's important. There's a difference there. But when somebody comes with that positive claim, there is a God, we can reject it.
Well, when someone comes with a positive claim that there is a God, they're usually talking about a specific God with, character history, attributes, deeds, and shit like that. So, I mean, it's like I would never say, for instance, that there is no God, full stop, whatsoever. There might be, but if someone comes up to me and says, "Oh, I've got like a book here, and it says that this is God's name and this is what God did," then you can check that against reality. But
so what would you say if somebody said that to you?
Another God might not.
Okay, so somebody made that claim to you, Raven, with no evidence, according to you or me, and they said, yes, God does exist. What would you do on that claim?
What is the claim?
The claim is God exists. We know that God either exists or he doesn't exist.
Right. Wait, when you say God exists, are you talking about a specific God?
Does it make a difference?
Yes. I'll just explain why.
Okay. Let's say Allah, because that's mostly what we talk about.
Right.
So somebody comes and they say Allah exists.
No, you're wrong.
So you reject their claim.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, so now we agree.
But if you were to say, if you were to say some type of God, okay, maybe. I don't know.
But you've agreed with me now because the stakes seem to be higher. So now
because, as I said, Allah is a specific God with a specific attributes, a specific character sheet, a specific history, a specific lists of deeds that we should be able to observe on this world, things that which there should be evidence. I mean, for fuck's sake, it was supposed to have flooded the entire world and repopulated us from one incestuous family. When was the last time you saw the fossils of a squid on a mountaintop? And you could just talk about like, well, what about the fact that the depth pressure would have created the equivalent of the Grand Canyon? What happened when freshwater and saltwater met and all the animals in that? And there was a million things you could say. Because again, this is a very specific God who has a list of deeds that again you can check against reality. If someone propagates Allah and they say there was a first man and a first woman, I can check that against reality. When they come with hadiths that say not only was there a first man and a first woman, but that first man and first woman were 90-foot giants made of clay, I can check that against reality. When someone says that Moses' story is true, I can check that against reality. When someone says the moon was split in half, I can check that with reality. When someone says that there was a prophet who went on a night journey to a grand mosque in Jerusalem, I can check that with reality and see that mosque didn't even exist until 100 years after.
So if somebody comes to you, Raven, and they say to you,
I can fact check a God that has a history, that has a character sheet. Whereas if you were to say any kind of God whatsoever, maybe one that didn't have attributes, that didn't have a fact sheet or a history, I cannot say that God does not exist. I can just shrug and say maybe. That's very different from a God with. It's very different from a God like Allah, or Vishnu, or Odin, or.
If I come to you and I say to you, Raven, my deity exists and we are all part of him. We are one, he is one. I believe in a panentheist deity. What is your position on my claim that the panentheist deity exists? That's all I can tell you about it. We and him are one.
I shrug, say, okay, and go about my day.
Okay, so I would reject that claim. So I think that's where we're different again. I agree with you that there's more...
Just make sure we're on the same page. Pantheism is the idea that nature is all, that the universe is God, right?
Yeah, but there is an intelligence involved. It's not as if it's unintelligent. Not just energy.
Well, there might be an intelligence. It really depends how you define intelligence. I could say that physics is intelligent, that evolution is intelligent.
No, well, there's some kind of...
You wouldn't really be able to argue that because it's kind of clever.
Well, I think what most people mean when they say intelligence is there's...
Pantheism and like the monism of Spinoza there. Kiv insisted we read, by default, we all have opinions / beliefs, which is backed by knowledge, experience, evidence, faith, etc.
No, it's not. No, it's not. I reject Kif's thing there. We believe things without knowledge. We all do. Knowledge comes afterwards. We all believe things and we don't know them. All of us. Think about it.
I haven't done that since I was a very small child.
You do it now. We all do it.
Yeah, you do. Of course you do.
We all do it now. Because knowledge is a subset of belief. You believe first and then you get knowledge. We don't wait until we know something to act. We act in accordance with our beliefs. So our beliefs are our top level and underneath that is knowledge.
You first believe that it rains outside. It's rain. If you hear things, you think, it's raining outside. And then you go outside and you verify, indeed it is. Because if I don't use an umbrella, I'm going to get wet. Or the other way around,
correct.
You don't use an umbrella and you don't get wet, then you realize, oops, I was wrong. It's not raining after all.
Yeah, quite right. Yeah, so Kiv, I would change that to we have beliefs and knowledge is a subset, and sometimes we can get the knowledge and then we can say, I know, rather than I believe. And I think that was my whole point going back to the speaker's corner. Is a lot of people say, I know. What they mean is I believe.
I wouldn't even have to see rain to know it's raining. I mean, if I'm lying in bed, my window's open. Well, I mean, if I can hear rain, if I can smell rain, I can stick my hand out and know
somebody's house pipe.
Yeah, but Raven, I heard rain, and I realized later it was a fountain in the courtyard.
Spraying on your window.
Exactly. So no. It could be a sprinkler or something, and you hear this, and you think, it's raining. Yeah. and then you go outside. Whoa, shit! No, I was wrong.
Yeah.
So this is exactly the verification process that you need. If you believe something and then you know it, this is exactly the difference.
So what if you actually don't believe it? What if you just think to yourself, "Oh, is it raining or is it?"
But Raven, go with my example. You are approaching a garage in the expectation that the car is actually inside. Otherwise, you wouldn't go to the garage.
But remember that. But what's the claim about? But what's the knowledge about the car? It's either in the garage or it's not in the garage. Do we all agree on that?
But you believe that it's in there, and you can only know that it's in there once you've opened the garage door. But you approach the garage door believing
about Schrodinger's cat. But until we actually get to the garage, the car is both in there and not in there. So
exactly, you got it. There you have it.
Okay, so me stops coming in as a person who doesn't know whether your car is in there. The car is either in there or isn't there. As I walk along the road, I look towards your house, the garage is closed, and I wonder, is the car in there or isn't it? That's the knowledge. It's in there or it isn't.
Well, what is the Schrodinger's cat? Yeah.
Well, yeah, but what is the default position though for somebody that walks up to you?
Yeah, I don't know.
Correct.
It's a garage which normally houses a car, but until you open it, you don't know whether there's a car in there or not.
Correct, my friend, because that's the knowledge claim. But now you walk out, or I see you walking towards me, and you say, "Hey, I know that guy. The car's in the garage."
Well, what if it's someone that you have such an experience with of lies that your automatic default is to not believe them? I mean, I could automatically think of two people just off the top of my head. But honestly, I tell you, if they told me the sky was blue, I'd have to go out and check.
Okay, but you're muddying the waters there, Raven, because that's not what I'm asking, is whether you know. Every time I ask you this question, you are looking for reasons to believe or disbelieve. I'm saying you have none of those. A claim has been made, and you need to assess that claim. And what is your default position when somebody says something?
I don't accept it.
The reason I mention that is because I've already kind of said earlier when you first asked me, I will believe you, and I talked about why I believe. Yeah, I've already said this previously.
Okay.
Then we started talking about dogs and dragons.
Yeah. You see, that's why I think it works better with the gumball machine and with the with God, because those two are exactly analogous. And I suppose the car can be close, but the gumball machine just seems to work better in my mind. I mean, it might work exactly the same with a car. But with the gumball machine, if there's gumballs in the gumball machine, it's either odd or even. Your default position on that is neutral. I don't know, because neither of us have counted them. So we don't know how many in there. So on the claim, on the knowledge business of there's even or odd gumballs, I agree with you. On that position, I say I don't know. If you said to me, Rob, there are even number of gumballs, I can reject your claim immediately and say, I reject your claim. That does not mean that I think that there is an odd number in there. It just means that I reject your claim because you haven't given me any evidence. So I reject your claim immediately. I have no reason to believe there's an even number, but that doesn't mean I think it's odd. If you can get that, then we're on the same page.
Okay. I think if you start to get in too much to semantics, I think you can talk about that. No, but it's important,
Abu, because I thought the same thing, and people make these claims at Speaker's Corner without realizing it, and then we jump into these different things. And the reason I brought this up tonight is because Hamza, the redhead fellow from Wales, wherever it is, the Muslim in Speaker's Corner, I saw a video this week where he's asking people, do you think my belief in God is reasonable? What would you three guys say to that? So Hamza comes up to you, he says, Raven, Abu stops. Do you think my belief in God is reasonable? What would you guys say?
You're an idiot.
So you think he's unreasonable would be the term?
Yeah.
Would you say he's unreasonable? Or do you think he's reasonable?
What is
you can't
his
say
God?
You don't know, do you?
Is his God like the standard? Like
he believes in Allah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it can be reasonable. It can be reasonable to him and still be unreasonable. Hence, idiot.
But he's asking you from your point of view, do you think his claim about Allah is reasonable or unreasonable? Because you don't have it. You can't say I don't know.
I mean,
you can
look,
try, but
reasonable.
that's
I
not
don't
an
think
answer.
I don't know if I didn't have.
I understand what
knowledge
he's
of what
saying. It's reasonable in the sense that it makes sense, in a way. But I don't
that's
think
not what
it's
he's asking. Though. He's asking, is it reasonable to believe, like I do, Hamza, the Muslim, in Allah? Is it reasonable to believe in Allah?
No.
In other words, is it reasonable if we?
Like, I think that's kind of annoying. Is it reasonable to believe? I mean, if you go in too much into the meaning of every word like that, you're gonna get stuck in an infinite regress every time. Like,
well, not really. Is it?
No, I don't think so either.
Okay. Well, I mean, just to put it another way, is it reasonable to believe the sun doesn't exist because last night it got dark?
I mean,
is it reasonable to believe the
you
sun does
can
not
reason
exist?
like it depends what
Because
you mean
last
by
night it got dark.
reasonable, but I mean you can reason like that if you
No, it's unreasonable to believe the sun does not
magic
exist.
mushrooms or
Even though last night it got dark.
It's unreasonable to believe that the sun does not exist.
I think
Even
that
though last
statement
In that
night it got
particular
dark.
case.
I think the statement is false. But I'm not going to go.
No, but he's asking. Okay, but Abu, listen to what he's asking. He's asking: is it reasonable, unreasonable to believe the sun does not exist because it got dark last night?
I mean, in common, ordinary, everyday sense, no, that's not reasonable.
Well, people used to believe it was quite reasonable. If you look at the Islamic texts, the sun may not exist at certain points because apparently douses. It goes into a pool of muddy water, so you got to assume that flame is extinguished.
And it came up again the next day.
Was that the same sun? It was like
does that make a difference?
I don't know. I mean, if
one
candle burns out, then you light another. Does it make a difference?
It depends on whether you're asking about that particular candle or particular sun. And I think, again, when you ask it colloquially like that, we all think of one sun. So if you say, is it reasonable or unreasonable to believe that particular sun? I would still say it's unreasonable to believe a particular sun. If you asked about a candle, remember that's a different claim. The level of your claim is much lower. The level of claiming that the sun does not exist is an extraordinary claim.
Just sort of relating this to your mate Hamza.
I still want to know what you think.
Part of what is reasonable or not reasonable, including his belief, particularly in the Islamic version of the God of Abraham, whether or not it's reasonable or unreasonable, a lot of it depends on the knowledge available to you. So, like, 1,000 years ago, was it reasonable to believe that this God exists? And then you can say yes or no. I would say it's a lot more reasonable 1,000 years ago to believe it than it is today. Why? Because of all the things I've mentioned where we can actually fact check the claims of this God, whereas you could not do that in the past.
Sure.
It might have
gained a lot more knowledge over 1,000 years.
It might have actually been very reasonable once upon a time to believe that the sun was dragged through the sky by a god in a flaming chariot. It's not reasonable to believe that today.
Well, let's make it easier. It would have been reasonable before 400 BC, was it 400, whenever it was, that the sun orbited the Earth. That was a reasonable position at that time.
No, it wasn't.
If somebody said it,
no. If you actually look at the Hellenistic models, if you look at Aristotle's work on meteorology, if you look at ancient China, people weren't thick back then. They figured out the Earth was round. They figured out that you can actually, was this Greek bloke, I can look him up if you want, but this was about 3,000 years ago, and he actually figured out the distance between the Earth and the Sun. It was it began with E, F-U. I can look it up.
What's that got to do with what has that got to do with the Earth going around? Sorry, the Sun going around the Earth. The distance.
Well, no, you said is it like would it be acceptable to believe that a few thousand years BC? No. Why? Because people had actually figured out that was bullshit. That's why, and they'd actually given evidence for it.
Okay, so you've got a historical evidence that shows
like Aristotle, for instance, realized that the Earth was a sphere because he noticed that when he was in, let's say, Egypt, that there were different stars visible than when he was in the more northerly regions of the empire, and he knew that this could not happen with a flat Earth. So he actually managed to work out and then use observation to figure out if the Earth was a sphere. And then there were other ancient Greek scientists.
That wasn't Aristotle. That was Eratosthenes.
Realized where the Earth rotates, who figured out, like I said, actually figured out and calculated the distance between the Earth and the Sun.
Yeah, Eratosthenes found out that the Earth, or he proved that the Earth was circular when he put those pillars in, a couple of thousand miles apart and measured the shadows and so forth. That was about 320 BC. But that's still, look, the history claim is,
Are you talking about Aristarchus?
Eratosthenes.
It's also one of the things that actually having this working knowledge of history is really good for Muslims when they go on like, yeah, but it was 1,000 years ago and this is in the Qur'an. How could they have known? And it's a basic idea that the Qur'an is a miracle, Allah is true, because people in the past were all retards. It's so stupid. Anyone who does just like a 10-minute look into history in the ancient world can rubbish these claims.
I agree with that. As soon as we know something, as soon as we have knowledge, we've got evidence and good reasons, then we can say there's knowledge there. So we know that the Earth orbits the Sun. Anybody that comes here and says the Sun orbits the Earth, we can reject anyway, because we have that knowledge. But it's more a case of when we don't know for certain, and somebody makes a claim, positive or negative, on a particular piece of knowledge that we don't know. So let's say the beginning of the universe. This is, of course, the Muslim favorite. They claim that the universe had a beginning. Number one. Number two, that it came from nothing through some process which they cannot in any way tell me about when I question them from God or Allah.
The process Islamically is Allah splitting Earth from heaven. You had Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, which seems to have been part of heaven at that point. And what happened is there was like the temptation, like Satan manifested in the garden. There was temptation, and then that led to the fall of man, where heaven and earth were split apart. And it's that splitting of heaven and earth which Muslims usually interpret to be the Big Bang. It's also one of the easy ways to debunk their claims, because like if you think that Earth existed from the start and was split apart from heaven, well, no, Earth does not predate the Big Bang. Okay, this planet was not around at the Big Bang at the start of the universe, and we can actually show that.
Well, I agree with that, but I was talking about the creation of the universe. So that verse,
they talk about the Big Bang. What was the Big Bang? It was when
they talk about before the Big Bang,
and then
they talk about
Paradise was split from Jannah.
Their claim, whenever I go down to Speaker's Corner, they goes, well, how did the universe come into being? It's got nothing to do with splitting from the heavens or anything like that. They are asking the question, how did the universe come into being? And of course, they don't ask it that well. They say, what caused the universe? So obviously we need to know that the universe has a cause, number one. And I've done some research now. Alan Guth, my favorite number one cosmologist in the inflationary model, says, and I'll quote it exactly because I'm going to go and quote this to these guys. I don't know if the universe had a beginning. I suspect the universe didn't have a beginning. It is very likely eternal, but nobody knows. This is the foremost cosmologist in the world in the inflationary model. He's saying that.
My knowledge of cosmology is not that great. But from what little I do know, I mean, science currently says that energy is eternal, cannot be created or destroyed. Whether or not that's actually true, maybe we'll find out later. Maybe we'll find out in a few centuries.
within a
But
process.
it also says, especially if you talk about like this, what you might think of as pre-Big Bang conditions, the whole something and nothing. That really says to me that you could argue that the universe is transformative. So to say the universe began might actually be a ridiculous thing to say. It might actually be wiser to say the universe in its current form.
Yeah, you could say that. I think we're going off onto the cosmology a little bit on the other side. So here's the bringing it back to the belief and knowledge. If a Muslim comes to you, Raven, or Abu, or stops, and they say to you, I believe the universe was created by Allah from nothing, what is your response to them? Do you say, I don't know? Do you say, I accept it? Or do you reject that?
Well, you don't ask me a question. They just come up to me and tell me what they believe. So I'd shrug and say, okay.
Okay, meaning
Thank you for telling me your belief. That's, good for you. Have a good life.
Okay, so, all right, they put it this way. They say to you, Raven, I notice you're quite good at that, and that's useful. You're what I term, there's a term for like the way you answer. What's the term called?
Intelligent?
No, those are good words, but that's not the term I'm thinking of. You're a mismatcher. That's
Genius. Brilliant. Oh, I know. It's it's like, I know the way that I'm actually speaking it, like they should have written on my gravestone, now brace yourself as I reveal my brilliance.
So a mismatch is an interesting type of person. They don't answer one way or another. They find ways to avoid answering. So if you ask them, is the sky blue?
No, I don't do that. If someone asks me a direct question, I will give a direct answer. If they don't ask me a question, they just tell me something. It's like if someone comes up to me and says, I believe this about the universe, okay. It's like if someone comes up to me and says, I like my favorite food is cheese. Okay. I mean,
so I'm going to ask you a question.
Ask me a question, I reply. If someone wants to debate me or find out my views, or if I agree or disagree, then okay, fine, we can do that. But if someone just comes up to me and informs me that they believe the universe is eternal or they believe in God, I'll just say, okay, good for you. If you ask me if I believe it, I'll say no. If you ask me why, I'll give a reason why.
All right, so let me ask you a question and see if you can respond to this. A Muslim comes up to you and says exactly that. What do you do in response to his claim that the universe was created from nothing by Allah? Do you accept the claim? Do you reject the claim? Or do you say, I don't know to the claim?
Well, no, if he said any God whatsoever, I would say I don't know. But if he says Allah specifically, then I would reject that because I reject the God Allah.
Yep, same here.
Okay, so if somebody comes up to you and they say, I have this deist God that's all loving, he's just a wonderful guy, I can't tell you much about him. He created the universe from nothing. What would be your response to that?
See, you've actually given me ammunition there to talk with, because I was talking about some sort of God that does not have any attributes, is undefined, there's nothing really to say about him. You've now given a bit of a personality, a God that is loving, so a God that actually experiences love. So you've just given me something to work with there. You've given me something to play with.
Okay, I take that back.
I didn't actually give myself anything to play with in my previous examples.
Okay, I take back the loving bit. So I'm coming to you. No. I mean, what I don't want to do is give you ammunition. What I don't want you to do is give you something to avoid answering the question. So I don't want to do that. I want to know what the difference is. Here's the better question.
Because when you put in an attribute like love, it's not that I'm avoiding the question. I'm acknowledging that the question is different. I'm still happy to answer it. Just saying, I believe in a God, undefined, unspecified. I believe in a God. Okay. I believe in a God.
I believe in that God.
I'm adding on this, that God is loving. Okay, so in what way is it loving? How is it loving? How would we establish that? Is it what we think of as love? Well, if it's loving, what is the point of this? And then you could even go to the problem of evil. Like, you have a loving God. So loving what way? Why does evil exist? Is this God a sadist? Is like what that God would think of as love, something we think of as evil?
Let me ask you a question again. You're going off on a tangent there. So I will make sure I don't do that.
That's what I was like, sort of going through some possible some possible possibilities just from the idea of an undefined God.
What was the question that I asked you, though? What was the question I originally asked you?
I believe in some sort of unspecified God that is loving.
No, that wasn't the question. The question was, and I threw in the loving, and I apologize for throwing in loving because that threw you off on a tangent. I come to you, Raven, and I say to you, there's a God, I can't define him. There's a deity out there. He created the universe from nothing. Do you accept my claim or do you reject my claim?
I'd be curious as why you would define this deity as male.
It creates the universe.
Come on, you just...
Well, no, because like
he's a mismatch. I can live with it. I can live with a mismatch. It just becomes more time consuming, where he could give an answer, and obviously his style is let me try and find a way not to answer or to be too specific.
I've already
it just takes longer to answer.
This about the God. When it comes to a specific God, I can fact check. Then I can either reject or accept. I've already rejected Allah and a number of other gods and told you why. When it comes to an unspecified God, I've said I'm neutral about it, and I've explained why. I even said I was neutral about a pantheistic God. You keep saying I'm not. You keep saying I'm not answering. I am answering. And then when you throw other things in, like love, I'm exploring the concept. I'm exploring the concept because it helps with answers. Sometimes I need to ask a question. Sometimes I would need to ask a question before I can give an answer. Like if you have like, okay, do you believe Allah exists? No, I believe Allah exists. What do you think about that? I think you're an idiot. I believe in some unspecified creative force. Okay. I believe in some kind of unspecified creative force that feels love for us. Okay. I need to question this a bit before I can give a good answer. That's not me avoiding a question. That's me being intellectually honest.
Okay, so what has loving got to do with whether he created the universe from nothing or not? Is there any bearing if you explore whether he's loving and what loving can do with it?
Loving has nothing to do with whether or not it created the universe, but it may have something to do with whether or not this particular idea of a God has any semblance of truth. Because when you define an aspect of loving, you're asking, well, does this God who feels love, would that love be what we would define as love? Why does evil exist? Does this God have the ability? So I'm asking whether or not this God has limits. I really am trying to get a better understanding of your idea of a God, and then give an answer.
If you had a better understanding of what I meant by loving, would that in some way influence your decision as to whether my claim about him creating the universe from nothing was true or false? Would
Yes.
it have any bearing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
No. It wouldn't have any bearing on whether or not there was a creator, but it would have a bearing on whether or not this specific idea of a God you have is in any way legitimate.
Okay. So I'll give you my position because I think I've asked yours and obviously you've kind of given yours. I would reject any claim of...
Just to interrupt, it'd be kind of like saying, I know someone that's a really caring person that loves children, and oh really, where do they live? Oh, is that on the street where there was where that little kid got hit by a car? Yeah, they were actually on the street. They saw it happen. Really? Yeah. Well, he said this person loves children. They do. Well, why don't they rush out and push them out of the way of the car if they love kids so much? I mean, just by putting one single attribute in there, it creates questions, and those questions can lead to certain conclusions.
Okay, but I think they conclusions that might not affect what originally we were talking about, or whatever the original thing is. So if we go off on a tangent, it
could affect whether or not this person really does love kids that much.
Sure, but the question that I asked you originally was, with a deistic God, just a deistic God that you know nothing else about, and just assuming that a God is something that's outside of our universe, and that is in theory capable of creating a universe. That's what anybody that I know of talks about a God. And now we don't need to get specific about the Hindu gods that only talk about fire. We're talking about the big gods, that the supernatural, fantastically powerful gods that most human beings on the planet believe in. if anybody comes to you or me, whether it's Allah, whether it's Jehovah, whether it's any other version of a God that could create a universe, and they say that the universe was created from nothing by their God, my position is I reject it out of hand. I don't need to know anything about their gods other than the fact that he could create a universe, in theory, if we're talking about that sort of God. I reject their claim, their positive claim that he created the universe from nothing. I reject it immediately. I don't need anything else.
We're going to get into that same discussion. Do you think you could use a different word than reject?
No, because the reject is the same for me as not accepting.
That's what I'm asking. Can you not use reject? Because otherwise we're going to start discussing this again.
Well, me and Stop have pretty much already said what we mean by reject, and because we've said very clearly this is what we mean by reject, when you continue to use that word, I mean, I don't know about Stop, but personally, I was assuming that that's the way that you meant it, because I already said that's what it means to me when I hear it.
Sorry, you did say. Can you repeat what you meant by it so that I'm clear what you mean? And then I'll say I reject it by your definition or not.
To me, reject is not the same as being neutral or being unsure. Reject is literally reject. I'm being very literal. No,
okay,
don't believe it.
Just look up the definition. Look up the definition and you will see that there's always an action associated with rejection.
So for you, Raven, if I can ask you a question.
Reject, definition. So definition, reject, verb. Dismiss as inadequate, inappropriate, or not to one's taste. Union negotiators rejected a 1.5% pay increase. Noun. A person or thing dismissed as failing to meet standards or satisfy tastes. Some of the teams reject have gone on to prove themselves in championships.
By that definition,
I would take that as the verb, not the noun. Well, then again, I mean, that also proves itself, because that just says that something that has been rejected has actually gone on to
and
prove
it dismisses it. It's not neutral. It's a negative aspect.
Correct, and that's exactly what I want to portray. It's a negative aspect about the positive claim that somebody says God created the universe from nothing.
Okay, but then it's not the same as not accepting.
Okay, so what does not accepting mean again to you?
Not accepting is neutral. If somebody says these eyes are blue, I will just say, oh well, okay, well, if either yes or no, I'm neutral. I don't care about it. Whereas if I say I reject that notion, I will say no, they're definitely not blue, and I have a reason to believe that they're not blue. That's exactly what we have been talking about the last hour, that there is a negative connotation with rejection. I mean, if I go and I say, this is my girlfriend, and then I want to break up with her, and she will say, are you rejecting me? I'm not neutral towards that girl. I am rejecting her. And they're saying, I do not want you as my girlfriend. It's not, I don't really care. No, it's negative. Okay, but we've been through this 50 million times, and it's not going to change. You will remain with not accepting. This is why I said, do you think it's possible to use a different word so that we don't go back into this discussion?
Because if I says to you that, like, I was a Pakistani Desi with pink fingernails, you would take one look at me and see that I'm a white Northern European with black fingernails. So you would just not just dismiss, you would outright reject that I'm Pakistani Desi and have pink fingernails. But you can see with your own eyes that's not true. You'd reject it.
Correct. Would you not do the same with the claim that God created the universe from nothing?
That's the thing. It's not just not believing it. It's not just not believing it or being neutral. You outright reject.
Okay, let's leave the word. Let's leave the word not accept. Let's substitute reject with not accept.
Sure, I can use that if you like. I do not accept any claim that a universe was created from nothing by a deity. How about you?
100%.
Does it matter to you, Raven,
what sort of?
Yes. Oh, okay, cool. Does it matter to Raven what sort of deity it is? If he knew more about it, that would give you more justification, sure. But would you reject the claim?
Just going on what you said just then. I'm
would you not accept? Sorry.
Maybe not. I wouldn't accept it, but I wouldn't reject it. I'd be open. I'll be open to it. I'm not convinced, but I'm open.
Okay.
I am giving you. I'm
so-
giving you permission to change to make me accept it.
Okay. All right.
Of course,
I
this
think-
is purely because you're
what you
more
really-
interested in cosmology than I
what you're
am.
really doing, David, what you're really doing is you're saying I'm neutral on the knowledge claim. That's what you're really saying. And you're
Yeah,
that's
and
spilling
again, I
over.
mean, a large part of I would actually assume a large part of it is I think that you and Stop have educated yourself in physics more than I have. I've always been more interested. Like my interest lays more outside of physics when it comes to actual dedicated study.
No, but you don't need to
I
know
really
anything
should
about
think.
physics. You're just talking
But
about claim.
there's also the whole idea. I'm very much aware of the fact that I don't know everything, and it's not. And I'm also aware of the fact it's not just there are things I don't know. There could be things I don't even know that I don't know. Things I'm not even aware that I don't know, that I wouldn't even think of not knowing, and I can never, ever, ever say otherwise. So to actually make this claim that there's no sort of God whatsoever, maybe a God I haven't even imagined or thought of or considered, I can't say that. That would be pure arrogance on my part. It wouldn't be honest.
But that's okay. But that, and I agree with you on that. But that's not the position that I asked you. And I think that's where, as we've said for an hour, that you
Well,
and
because
Stops
you said
haven't
any kind
understood.
of God. You said like some unspecified God that created a universe from nothing. Well, from what I currently know, I would say no. But what if there's information I'm lacking? What if there's information I'm not even aware I'm lacking? Is that possible? Yeah, it is. So I can't say for sure. Okay, I'm open to it.
Okay, but that's what you've just said now. Those last 5 sentences, that was
I've just said I'm-
specifically
I'm-
aimed. Okay, hang on a second before you interrupt. What you just said in those last 5 sentences was related to the knowledge claim: a God created the universe or a God did not create the universe. That is a separate claim. That knowledge claim, let's call it, is separate from a person telling you that God did definitely create the universe. Can you see that there's a difference there?
Oh, so you mean like
If you get
yeah.
penny
The
drops
difference
here,
is me accepting a possibility versus someone stating it as a fact.
great. So the knowledge claim is God created the universe from nothing, or he didn't. That's the knowledge
Right.
claim.
Well, if someone stated it to me as a fact, I would reject it for the simple reason that they don't know it for a fact anymore.
Thank you. We've got there after an hour and 13 minutes, give or take. No, you came late, so hour and 15. Thank you. We've got there.
Okay, now
if you
can
play
we
that
please?
if you play that back, that will be a penny drop moment for you. It was for me when it first happened, because I would have said exactly the same. Now you've got it, I hope. Now you've got it. The difference between the claim, between the knowledge, and the person making the positive claim. You can reject the positive claim of the person. That does not mean you reject the knowledge claim. That's the penny drop moment. As soon as you got that, we're sweet. Now we're on the same page.
Well, I already said this before. It's like, well, I'm open to it. Convince me.
Yeah, but that's on the knowledge claim, not on the person making the claim. They've made a positive claim. I agree with you. They've got to prove it in order for you to accept it. But because it's an extraordinary claim, you reject their claim, or you don't accept their claim, if you want to use that term. To me, they're the same thing. You don't accept that claim out of hand, straight away.
Theistic gods, I would reject. Any sort of god whatsoever, for reasons said, I'm neutral.
On the knowledge claim, you are neutral, yes.
I'm willing to be convinced.
Okay, as long as you...
Now we have
We're halfway there,
Hadith.
so...
I think you're just going in circles now. You talked about the
No, it's good,
same...
because I think Raven got it there. The difference between not accepting the knowledge claim and the person making a positive claim about that knowledge claim. That's the crucial bit. I don't know if you got it. Abu, what's your point? You've been very quiet. Abu, what's your take on what we've been talking about?
I've been working. I haven't just listened with half a year, but
can I ask you then?
Yeah.
Maybe you know straight out of the top of your head.
I'm actually sorry. Just before you do, I'm a bit confused about why you think I'm only just getting it now. I mean, if we just go back to my example of you having sex with your wife last night, I mean, I kind of thought that I showed then that I got it, because it's the exact same thing.
So so with my wife,
maybe I was just
a good example.
Because
yeah, let's not use that.
I got it now, whereas I kind of thought that the whole wife thing was showing that I got it. Maybe that's just like my bad communication skills.
I'm not sure on the wife thing. That's probably not the best example to use. The gumball machine would have been the same thing. All right, Abu, let me give it to you very quickly then. Somebody comes to you and says to you, Abu, I believe in some kind of God out there. I believe that God created the universe from nothing. That's my positive claim about a God creating the universe from nothing. What is your position on my claim? Do you not accept it, or do you accept it?
I think that claim is I don't think that is true.
So do you reject it, or you not accept it? That's Stopson and Raven one.
What do you mean,
do you reject the claim? Do you not accept the claim, or do you accept the claim?
I don't think it's true.
Because you can't say I don't know. You either accept or you don't accept, I guess. Because somebody's making a positive claim. Remember the difference. I'm coming to you and I'm saying the universe was created by a God from nothing. That's my positive claim. What we know is that either the universe was created or it wasn't created from nothing. But that's separate to what I'm telling you. I'm telling you the universe was created.
Rejected. I don't think that is true.
So what do you do on the claim, sorry?
I mean, I haven't listened to your definition of rejection and so on. And I'm in general not that interested in going too deep into semantics. I just don't think it's true. I think it's false. I don't think that's how the universe came about.
Okay, so do you accept the claim, or do you not accept my position that it is that it is the case?
Excuse me, I was sidetracked briefly. Well, the last question.
Okay, so I'm the sort of panentheist type person, panentheist, whatever it is, and I say to you, Abu, I believe the universe was created from nothing by my God. My positive claim is that the universe was created from nothing by my God. Do you accept my claim, or do you not accept my claim?
I mean, I accept that you believe that, but I don't think that is true.
So do you accept my claim, or do you not accept my claim from your point of view?
It's probably factually true that you believe that. But I think that belief...
That's not what I'm asking you.
It's not. What?
I'm not asking you what you think about my belief. I'm asking you, what do you believe about my claim?
I believe your claim is false.
So do you accept my claim, or do you not accept my claim?
If you're going to push me like, I don't accept your claim. Okay.
Thank you, my friend. Why was that so hard? I'm using specifically not accept because Raven and Stops don't like me using the word reject. They feel that's a much stronger version. I think not accept and reject are exactly the same when it comes to the positive claim that I made as the deist. It's different if I made a knowledge claim. It's different about the knowledge claim, but it's not different in my view. My positive
I'm just looking at
what book it was.
It said in big capital letters, "Thank you, Raven. You acknowledge belief." Actually, I don't think I ever said otherwise.
You acknowledge belief. No, what I got from it is that you acknowledge that there's a difference between somebody making a positive claim and that there is a knowledge claim. So the universe either was created from nothing or it wasn't created from nothing. That position we can either accept, reject, or we don't know. But when I come with my positive claim, that's what I'm saying. I reject. I don't say I accept. Not accept as you guys.
Do you acknowledge a difference between belief and opinion?
Do I have a difference between?
Oh, now you're going into this semantics once more.
Probably I think dictionary definition, but I would say they're pretty much the same thing.
I want to give you a suggestion for. You should read what Karl Popper. He talked for a long time. I read that book, but he talks a long time about this. He thinks that I don't remember exactly how he put it, but he thinks a huge chunk of philosophy or the history of human thought has been wasted on defining words. I mean, you can do that for eternity. Define what's the difference between opinion and...
Are you sure that's what he said?
I don't remember exactly what he said,
That's
but
not
he said
important to define words,
Well,
if I get you
the
correct.
thing
it's
is,
not that
I
it's
mean,
not important. It's just that you will
it's only
always
the
end up
thing
in
is, though,
infinite regresses.
the thing is,
over
though,
time.
going by what you just said, he's only correct if, in the sense that we all agree, or there's a majority agreement on what certain things mean. You know, I mean, it
can I
doesn't
give an
necessarily
example
apply to this conversation,
Can I
because
give you an example from mathematics? If you take, like,
using
for
the same
example,
word, but we actually have a different meaning to the same word. So that's very different than someone saying cat, and then everyone's disagreeing about what cat means. We have a majority standard definition where you say cat, everyone knows what you're talking about.
can I give you
Whereas
an example?
whereas this conversation
okay.
wasn't quite the case.
Raven, for fuck's sake! Can you, for fucking sake, listen when other people? You're always talking in other people's mouth. It's getting.
I know it annoys you. I
annoying.
enjoy that.
Okay,
enjoy it.
We do not enjoy that. Okay, other people do not enjoy that.
Okay, let's one person at a time, please.
When you are behaving like this, you're burping and doing all kind of stuff and talking other.
Perfect.
Can't you use some kind of civilized? You barbarian.
Okay, Abu, your turn.
Okay.
Go, your turn.
I want to, before you were talking about this, you were talking about, I think, measuring the size of the sun or something like that, or the size of the moon. One kind of interesting guy is Aristarchus of Samos, born 310 BC. He died 230 BC. And I can recommend what Max Tegmark wrote in the book Our Mathematical Universe to talk about this. Anyway, but he used some like mathematical tools to figure out the size of the sun, and he come to the wrong conclusion, although the method, had he put in the right digits, he would have got the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
But why I want to use that example is because when you're measuring, for example, say that you have you're measuring the size of Raven's hair, for example, or one particular hair. I mean, you do not have to know like the exact answer to like the length of that hair, and it may not even really be possible to answer that, because if you go really deep into the hair and start to like measure the size of the atom, and then you're going to measure the size of every single particle, and then you find out, well, actually the particles are actually in a kind of quantum like superposition, and or well, if they are, but like, okay, but you know what I'm saying is, you don't have to define it exactly in order to say something about this hair of Raven. And in the same way, you don't have to define every single word and go into an infinite regress of every single word. You will spend your whole life wasted on. You'll waste your whole life on stupid semantics when you can go out in the world and do real science. You see what I'm saying? And if you want a longer, if you want to read a longer, you should read Karl Popper and his works. I don't remember exactly in what, maybe someone in the chat, but he talks about this in his works.
I have heard of the sort of the one where you could, in theory, if you talk about like, measuring a meter from here to whatever is closest to you, you can always divide that in half infinitely, can't you? And in theory, you'd never reach, whatever it is that you're measuring to. But in reality, like you say, we can measure things. But so I'm kind of halfway between that, Abu. So I would agree with you. You wouldn't go on. It depends what it is. If we needed to know, for example, Raven's hair down to the nanomillimeter for whatever reason, then we need to measure it. So it depends on what's the purpose of whatever we are doing. If we're just doing it for no good reason, then I agree with you. But if, like Raven and I and Stops had a discussion for an hour and a half on the word rejection, and Raven and Stops have a different definition to rejection than I do, then it is useful for us to agree on a definition. Now, the one that he read, for example, in the dictionary, I agree with, and I think that is exactly the same as not accept. And when he read it to me there, again, if you've got it there, Raven, you could read whichever part that you accept. That sounds to be perfectly acceptable as not accept or reject. But if Stops and Raven have got different views, then we're missing each other. And so I think there does need to be some definition, but I agree with you. You don't need to go super duper deep, but you do need to agree. Otherwise, we're talking Chinese and French, and we're just not communicating.
Yeah. So what I mean is that you can have an approximate understanding of what you mean, and sometimes, yes, maybe you have to explain what you mean. But if you spend an hour talking about what do you mean by reject? What do you mean reject? Or do you mean accepting? No, reject. No, I believe. No, faith.
Abu, do you agree that words only convey information and the meaning is assigned by the recipient?
I would say I agree that it needs to be accepted by recipient and sender. But yes, if the recipient has got a different definition, then the sender and the recipient need to agree in order for the conversation to move forward. Otherwise, there'll be a conflict over what something means. So we had a conflict, in my view, because of a misunderstanding on your guys' part, but obviously you think it's a misunderstanding on my part. That's why we had a conflict around the word reject. You thought not accept was a much softer version. In other words, almost like being on the fence. And I believe that not accept and reject are exactly the same thing. But you think, no, not accept is on a fence and reject is like a hard no.
Maybe I'm just too stupid, or maybe I lack some kind of intelligence. I remember I once, okay, now I'm going to understand the philosophy of Wittgenstein. So I dig deep into that. But yes, some things that he say I agree with, but a lot of what he says is just I just feel that this is not the best.
It's a penny, but Abu, it is a penny drop moment, because I was the same. I confused belief and knowledge, and so I was much more tentative about rejecting somebody's positive claim. Now I will reject it. So a Muslim comes to me now. I'm going to go on Sunday, so hopefully I'll get some recordings. If somebody comes to me and asks me, Rob, do you think my belief in Allah is reasonable? I will say no. I won't say, oh, I don't know. I won't tiptoe around it because he's making a positive claim, and I reject that positive claim based on the fact that he hasn't got evidence and it's an extraordinary claim. I won't, then I will explain, if he's prepared to listen to me, then I will explain that doesn't mean I say there is no God. On the knowledge claim of there is a God or there isn't a God, I'm agnostic. I don't know whether there is. But on your claim that yes, there is a God, I reject your claim for the reasons I've just given. So that's what I will do, and we'll see what response I get. I will say you're unreasonable to believe in Allah. That will be my position.
Okay, Caliph, Abu, can I ask you again? Do you agree that words are just like a container, and the meaning is then assigned by the recipient?
Good question. That's something, as I said, I have tried to get into this kind of philosophy of language. I remember I listened to hours with John Searles, and I tried to dig deep into the philosophy of Wittgenstein. I'm not sure I get much out of it. My conclusion is more that words, I don't know, but what I think is that if you want to know the real truth about things, sitting and defining words in that way won't get you very far. That's all I know.
That was not my question.
Yeah, I know that was not your question. Okay, but what was here? Let me think.
I'm asking about the concept.
Yeah, okay. So when you're saying a word, say any word like computer, so some sound waves are transferred through the air, and it reaches my ear, goes into my ear, transported to my nervous system, and then my cerebral cortex start to make some kind of meaning of that, and then I have a kind of inner concept in my cerebral cortex of what a computer is, or several.
Okay. Now, exactly. This is what I'm talking about. This is the concept. So in other words, your cerebral cortex is then matching what the sound waves are giving to you with what your memory already contains.
I think so.
Okay, so if I give you the word peace,
Yeah.
you have a certain concept of peace.
Yeah. Or several
So-
concepts.
Which is the absence of violence, the absence of destruction, the absence of death, and things like that. But now, if a Muslim comes to you and says Islam is all about peace, but his definition of peace is not at all about the absence of destruction and violence, but is rather the common submission to a communal God, then there's a disconnect. And this is where it becomes important that you talk about definitions and
Yeah.
what
Okay.
it is
Yeah.
that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Didn't I
And
basically
also,
summarize all
like
this?
another similar example is like in George Orwell's the 1984, where we're talking about newspeak, how they like change the words, and so yes, I see
Exactly.
that.
This is the perfect example. Yes, how the concept of the container remains, but the intention behind it changes.
Yeah, but
This
like
is exactly the point that I'm trying to make. There are some things where you need to agree.
when we say peace as the opposite of war, then
No,
I
that's
think-
not it.
Okay, but I mean, like, I can give you a certain. The word peace is used for sometimes if a military strategist talk about peace, he probably was he will talk about it in the context of the absence of battles or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if, like a Buddhist monk talk about peace, he maybe will talk about peace of mind.
Exactly.
And when a Muslim talk about peace, he will talk about it as submission to Allah.
There you go. So you have the same word, but totally different concepts.
Yeah.
Didn't I basically summarize all this before Abdul had his little hissy fit?
Sorry, I didn't understand that.
I said, didn't I basically summarize this whole thing before Abdul had his little hissy fit?
But look, I think we all know these things. Well, it's just that they are so often used as kind of rhetorical devices. That,
No, okay, but the difference here is that if you say, I reject, I deny, these they convey a message. They convey a content which I think is inappropriate, because I want, as an atheist, in my capacity as atheist, I want to remain totally, absolutely neutral. I am not making a claim. I am not judging. I am not rejecting, denying, or pushing away, or doing anything like that. Because I believe, as an atheist, only as an atheist, that anybody can believe whatever they want, as long as they don't use it against me. And that is me as an atheist, in my capacity. And that's why I said different facet, different kind of personality. There's different. But this is why I'm so adamant that I am neutral until somebody proves something or not. And I will stay.
Then you're agnostic, aren't you, Stops? Then you're agnostic.
This has nothing to do with
do you
agnostic or belief. This just has something to do with my attitude towards a claim of somebody.
Do you accept that there's a difference between knowledge and belief?
Absolutely.
And do you believe that somebody can be agnostic on knowledge and an atheist on belief?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, there we go. Because knowledge and belief are separate things. So
Yes.
you and I think, and Raven and Abu are
They're
all
not separate
agnostic
things.
on
They're
the
part and
knowledge
parcel
claim.
of the same thing.
There is a God or there isn't a God. But we reject the positive claim of theists that there is a God, or we don't accept, to use your word if you prefer, we don't accept the positive claim of a theist that there is a God. So we are all, from what I can tell, agnostic atheists. And it's not semantics, and it's not like small words. These are important because one is knowledge, one is belief, and they are so easily mixed, as has happened
I
tonight.
reject the term agnostic.
Really? I actually often refer to myself, when people ask me my view, I quite often refer to myself as an agnostic atheist.
No, if agnostic is bullshit. Do you believe a God exists or not?
No.
Well, then you can't be an agnostic, can you?
Yeah.
No, but listen to what you just said, Stops. Listen to what you said. You said, do you believe that a God exists or not? He said no. So that's an atheist position. Do you know?
No. Sorry. If you don't believe that the God exists, you will never be able to make the claim that a God exists, a knowledge claim. If you already believe that there is none, you will never be able to make the knowledge claim. So the agnosticism, of the knowledge claim falls away immediately the moment you say belief.
Well, this kind of comes back to what when earlier when Rob was asking me, well, what if someone said Allah? I reject it. What if you said any kind of God, don't necessarily specify it? And I say maybe. You know, I mean, the gods of religion, theistic gods, I outright reject them. Pretty much any sort of intervening God, I reject. Whether there's any type of God whatsoever, I don't know.
That's not the point that I'm trying to make. The point that I'm trying to make is you either know a God exists or you don't know. If you don't know, then then you are down to belief, and that is it. So you cannot make a knowledge claim.
But no one knows.
Hang on.
Goes out the window. So we don't need knowledge because it's stupid, because you can't know everything. So this agnosticism is stupid in my eyes.
Okay, hang on a sec, Stops. I think you said a couple of different things there. You just said either you know a God exists or you don't know a God exists. And I would change that to the knowledge claim is either a God exists or a God does not exist. It's not about you knowing it. Either a God exists or a God does not exist. Now, you can accept
a belief or a knowledge claim. If you claim that you don't know, then you can't make a claim towards the knowledge.
If that's correct, if your claim is around the knowledge, but if somebody comes to you with a positive claim, that's the different thing. But I agree with you. Around the knowledge claim, you can say I don't know. Whether there's a God or there isn't a God, all of us here, none of us can say we absolutely know there's no God.
Exactly.
Correct?
So this whole agnostic and gnostic falls away, right, from the word.
No, it doesn't. No. The fact that we can't absolutely say a God does not exist means that we have to take an agnostic position on the knowledge claim.
Okay.
We can still believe a God doesn't exist.
Can you be a non-believer and agnostic?
Can you be a non-believer
Yes.
and agnostic? Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay, I don't see that.
Well, I'm a non-believer.
A non-believer.
Are you agnostic and a non-believer?
Yeah.
So you know for a fact there's no God and you don't believe it?
No.
I don't believe there is a God. I don't know for a fact.
I asked
Remember,
you, are you agnostic? Are you not? Sorry, I didn't ask, are you agnostic? I said, are you gnostic?
Agnostic, no.
So can you believe and still say, yes, I know there's a God? Can you say, I don't believe there's a God, but I know there's a God?
Well, Gnostic actually means knowledge. Agnostic is without knowledge. If you want to put it in the context, if you want to put it in the context of a God, Gnostic being I believe, agnostic being I don't believe.
Can you be a believer and still say, I know there's no God?
No, not when you say I know there's no God.
Okay, so
I don't know. What if
so it doesn't matter which way you face it, agnostic and gnostic are superfluous.
I actually have a quick question about
that.
No, now we're going into semantics again, which I hate.
No, we're not going to semantics. You are wrong on this one, Stops. It's not semantics. There's a knowledge claim. God exists or he does not exist.
Right. Okay, now combine
believe. Okay, but now you can believe something around that knowledge claim. That's the atheist position. The knowledge claim itself, none of us here say God does not exist absolutely. We believe God does not exist.
So what does the word agnostic do?
The agnostic points to the fact that we don't have absolute knowledge on the claim a God exists or a God does not exist.
Does the believer have absolute knowledge?
They claim they do. But we know.
No. That's not what I asked. Is it possible to have absolute knowledge regarding gods?
No.
Exactly. So why use? That's why I said it's useless.
No, but
good question.
No. Carry on, Raymond.
Right. Because after Abdul's little hissy fit, I'm just keeping in mind
It's
that
not a
my
hissy
computer is
fit.
a bit slow.
It was justified criticism.
He was a bit frustrated.
I am keeping in mind that with my computer, sometimes it sounds like people have stopped talking, and then when I play the video back, I see.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sometimes I overreacted. I have a very busy week.
I'm not angry. I promise I'm not.
No, I'm not.
I've even said before on previous shows, I've apologized because it might just be my computer. It honestly seems to me like people have stopped talking, and then when I play the YouTube video, I'm watching it and I'm like, oh fuck, it's like I'm interrupting all the time. But it really seems to me like right now there's no one talking. I cannot hear a single person talking. And oh wait, Abby's just come on now.
Okay, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry, I overreacted.
I don't even know.
I'm very tired. I had a busy week. I've been working.
Again, you just come on. I bet I'm going to watch this on YouTube, and you would have come on like 30 seconds before. I do apologize.
Okay, no worries.
But anyway, stop. The question I had, you're going on about how you can believe and not believe at the same time. I mean, what about like Roman Catholicism? They do not believe in Genesis in a literal sense, but they still believe it.
Sorry,
yeah, but then the words are incorrect, and then you can't use those words. What you really mean is say the claim again.
Well, Stop was just going on about how you can either not believe something or believe it, but then there's like Roman Catholics, for instance, they don't believe in Genesis in a literal way, but they still believe it's true.
No, Raven, that's not what I said. What I said is you cannot believe and then claim I do not know, and you cannot not believe and then say I know.
Well, no, I would disagree with you there. I've met a number of people that actually do say that. They actually say, I don't know.
It's not logical. You can't know for sure whether a God exists or not. You cannot know this for sure. This is why this whole agnostic can fall away.
Yeah, but you can acknowledge that you don't know for sure while still having a belief or lack of.
That makes it a belief.
Right. But you can believe.
We don't need knowledge. We cannot have a knowledge claim regarding gods. So this agnostic regarding gods is useless.
Stops, are you saying that it's impossible for any knowledge to come about now or in the future that would allow us to believe in a God?
Yes.
As defined by the Bible or okay, so that claim, you are now not an agnostic atheist. If that's your claim, then if you went to Speaker's Corner and I heard you say that as a theist, I'd say, okay, provide your evidence. You've made the absolute claim that the knowledge to God is impossible.
Yes.
So now you have to provide that. You have to provide the reasons why you say that, because now you've made a stronger case.
It's non-detectable.
Does that mean that it's impossible for it ever to be detectable in some way, or that it has been in the past and we just didn't know it?
Okay, sorry. We haven't been able to detect it in the last 200,000 years, and that is why I say you cannot know for sure whether a God will ever. You can never ever be sure whether a God exists or not, because we don't even know what a God is. It's not defined.
Okay, so but that's a different thing than what you said before. You've now just said
No.
can't be sure.
I said agnosticism towards a God or gnosticism towards a God is superfluous. We cannot use the word agnostic or gnostic regarding gods. Because gods are designed to be undetectable.
Yeah, but they could be detectable, correct? It's possible for them to be. They're all powerful.
Yeah, but they're not.
But they're not what?
They're not designed to be detectable. How can you detect a God?
What I'm saying is it's possible for them to be detectable. In other words, it could put its finger into this universe and stir it up. And if we had enough knowledge, we could say we now know there's a God.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Saying that's impossible?
I get it. In that case, I'm wrong. Okay. Yes, I agree with you.
Well, if a God did do that, I mean, you'd have to assume it's finger or whatever that would be.
No. If you read the Bible, if you read the Qur'an, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, if you read those texts, it's always that a God is outside and beyond our realm of the senses.
If that is the positive claim they make, then I agree with you. Then it's impossible to ever detect this God in any way that we would
but
be able
that's
to
the
know.
way it's defined. Yes, that's why I'm saying it's impossible to do that the way it is defined, because it's undefined, but the way it's described in those texts, it's totally undetectable. That's how it's been designed, so that you can't detect it.
Okay, but I agree with you to a point, but they don't say that. They say that this book was written by God, so it is detectable because this is his handiwork. He spoke through his little messenger.
You first need to prove a God before you can prove the handiwork.
But they say that's evidence. I agree that it's not evidence, but they're saying it is. So they say he's already twiddled his finger, and here is the evidence of his finger being twiddled.
Yeah, okay.
Well, Rob, can I suggest a different approach? Oh, since you do often have these conversations at Speaker's Corner, I think a more interesting conversation would be if you were to accept the existence of a God, what then?
What? Say again?
If you were to accept the existence of a God, what then?
If I were to accept it, then there would be finished. Then, okay, the way that it works is there is a God. He created, it's a he, remind you, he created worthy of worship.
See, that's not me. If I was to accept there is a God, I mean, so long as, let's not go on to specific gods or anything like that. Let's just say I was to wake up tomorrow.
You would have to go on to a specific God. Because you said to me, accept a God. My first question to you is, what God? If you can't define it, then it's meaningless. Carry on. Here's the evidence of
just to roll along with it. If I was to wake up tomorrow, I'll just roll out of bed tomorrow with the mindset, I think there is a God, I think there is a creator. That would have absolutely no impact on my life in any way whatsoever. The fact I believe there's a creator, it doesn't mean I believe in an afterlife. It doesn't mean I believe in punishment. I mean, the way I think of it, if I was to suddenly wake up tomorrow and accept the existence of a God, it would be exactly the same as me accepting the existence of Thailand. It has no impact on my life whatsoever. The fact I acknowledge Thailand exists, if Thailand was wiped off the map tomorrow, it would make no impact on my life whatsoever. It would make no impact on my habits or my actions, and it would just be the same with a God. To accept simply that there is a God, there is a creator, doesn't mean it gives a shit about me, doesn't mean it knows I exist, doesn't mean there's a soul, doesn't mean there's an afterlife. So I don't know. It might be something an interesting point to make next time you're at Speaker's Corner, because like to just accept purely there is a God. That's it. I'm not going into any definitions. Not saying this one or that one, but there is a creator. That's the best way I can. That's the best way I can say it. It's just like me accepting the existence of Thailand.
Okay, so my response, and I'll welcome Fee into the conversation. Fee, you can take over after this. My response to that, Raven, is I don't think there's a human being on this planet that believes in the God that you've just talked about, which is a meaningless God. So in other words, what you said there, you've defined something with the word GOT that is completely meaningless. You've given it no attributes. You've told us nothing about it. So if that's what you said to me, I'd say that's meaningless. I can believe that, and I can label that diddly-doop.
So you've never heard anyone talk. So you've never heard of anyone talking about a theistic God that is non-interventional, a God that basically created the universe and then just left it a non-intervening deistic.
There you go. There you go. You've just added attributes. That's not what you said before.
I added attributes just to give you something to work with. The reason I didn't add
otherwise it's meaningless, isn't it?
Because
without attributes or some description, that word God is meaningless.
Well, the word God simply meaning creator.
Yeah, but it's undefined.
Correct. I'm going to step back. Fee, welcome. Please join in the conversation.
Hi, guys. I've just joined in, so I'm not sure what exactly is the topic for today's show. But I've got a few questions to check with you if you guys
knowledge and belief.
Right. I've got a question on a totally different topic. What do you guys think about if you have seen that Dan Gibson's documentary and his book about the origins of Islam, you know, about Muslims praying in the wrong direction, and the Mecca is actually referring to Petra.
Who's Dan Gibson?
He's a scholar apparently who's been living in Middle East, and he's looked into it. Basically it's a geography sort of claiming the earlier mosques were actually not facing the Mecca. They were facing in the direction of Petra.
No, they were not.
Have you looked into it at all?
No, they were not facing in the direction of Petra.
Okay,
There's one mosque which is facing in the direction of Petra. The others are facing into a direction which is like 300 kilometers further south.
Further south.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's talking about Petra, which is further
This
north.
is the place where the harbor was, where all the trade happened. Because remember, the Nabateans who created Petra were a trading civilization. When they went out, they suddenly disappeared. We still don't know why exactly they disappeared. The whole thing shifted. Half of it went to Damascus, the other half went south, where the trade ships landed from India. And this was the center, and this is where it was established as an opposition to the Jews, the Zoroastrians, and the Yazidis. That's why you pray 5 times, just like the Zoroastrians and the Yazidis are doing. This is where everything was copied from. And you copy half of the Jews, half of the other stuff. And this is why, this is my personal theory, this is my personal hypothesis. This is where this place was, which is called Sodom and Gomorrah, which in the Quran talks about this is where people walk along by day and by night.
So stop, which place are you referring to? Is it down south from Jordan, close to Mecca, is it? Or
No. It's 1,000 kilometers north of Mecca. It's close to the coast. It is just, I would call it, southwest of Petra.
All right.
This is the modern location of Mecca, not the old location.
So not
I just know one location of Petra.
No, Mecca.
Oh, no, Mecca is, I only know one location of Mecca.
First I know another one. Anyway, Fee, you know that, so just talking about mosques, you reminded me. You know that originally, according to scripture, Muhammad said that you're not supposed to pray to the Kaaba, you're supposed to pray facing towards Jerusalem.
Jerusalem, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, obviously they had a change in the Qibla, and there's a
No. He doesn't say Jerusalem. It doesn't mention Jerusalem.
Yeah, that's right. It does mention. What does it mention? I don't remember now.
No, it mentions the sacred place, but it doesn't specify what it is. If you're talking about the Quran, that is.
That's right. Yeah.
No, Jerusalem is not mentioned. The mosque in Jerusalem, for example, is the furthest mosque, the Al-Aqsa. Aqsa means the furthest. It's the furthest mosque. Jerusalem is not mentioned anywhere in the Quran.
So do you guys believe the story which Muslims say about the origins of Quran? It's kind of what we have got, or you because there's all these scholars who have asked questions about the original location of Mecca. There was a documentary as well a few years back about whether Mecca is actually Mecca. So what you're saying, stop, it's actually close to Petra, but it's definitely not referring to Mecca.
No, I'm not saying definitely. I'm saying that the oldest mosques are pointing towards a place which is, well, I would call it southwest of Petra. One of them is pointing towards Petra, but it could be an error of a couple of degrees or something. But there's no definite place. There is no place where we could say, that's where we pinpointed, that's where it comes from. The point is that in the Quran, for example, it says the nearest land. What is the nearest land or the lowest land? Well, it points to a point of origin somewhere in the Levant. So the Quran is designed to be somewhere it looks to be somewhere in the Levant, where you have olives, where you have grapes, which is impossible in Mecca, because Mecca you only have a single well, which is Zamzam. even Medina, you have, Medina was an oasis. So there, if you look at agriculture, you can see irrigation schemes from 1,000 years ago. Mecca doesn't have that. So there was no way that the Hijaz or Mecca or any surrounding area could have produced grapes and olives. So it's impossible. And then Tom Holland came around in the documentary, and he said, well, if you look at all the logics, if you look at all the logistics in the logics, you will see that it's impossible to be Mecca.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, that's the documentary I'm referring to. But there's a new one out. I don't know if anybody has seen. I think it got released last year by this guy, Dan Gibson, who has also written a book on it. I'm going to find out the name of it, but it's called Quranic Geography or something.
I'm not aware of the book. I might have heard about it, but I don't have it here, and I have not read it.
Okay, one other thing, in Speaker's Corner, a lot of people, when you talk about the reliable transmission of Quran, they come up with this science of isnad, how it was correctly recorded by one person to another and it got sort of verbally passed on.
Okay, that's not Quran, that's Hadith.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Hadith, yeah. So
it's also not science.
Well, that's what they claim. So what's your sort of view on it?
My view, the Hadith's a myth.
Nah, they're fairy tales. Okay, number one, Hadith always consists of two things. One is the isnad and one is the contents. Now, the contents that you have, it contradicts each other and it contradicts the Quran. And it doesn't make it makes absolutely no sense at all. There is not a single hadith which can be verified. There is not a single hadith that makes any sense. It is either banal or it's a platitude or it's just sheer stupidity.
Also, Muhammad would have to be coming out with, if you think about how many hadiths they are, Muhammad would have to have been coming out with a hadith every 5 minutes, 24/7. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No time to sleep, no time to eat, no time to piss, no time to... No, every 5 minutes for his entire prophethood.
I think I want to be fair. I mean, I don't think we can be... I don't think that the so-called science of like the chains are real science. But however, there are certain hadith that talk about kind of historical events, and
what?
Which
one?
Like they're talking about particular battles. Like I think maybe not last week, but we were talking about Bani Qurayza, for example, that event. I mean,
Yeah,
that is.
These are not actual events.
No, probably not. They're probably not. But I'm agnostic about.
You bastard.
Like, no, but there might be some kind of very, very modified grain of truth in some of them. The problem is how to figure out what is true and what is not true and what is just because
not true, verifiable. Let's stick to verifiable.
Yeah, I'm not saying verifiable that way, but like when you think like the guys like Bukhari and all those guys, and even Imam Malik.
Like if you go to Tirmidhi, it's already dubious.
Yeah, but do you think that they maliciously like, oh, we're just gonna?
No, they're fabricated. They're just made up. They wanted. No. Come on. Let's look at the history of the Quran. Let's look at the history of Islam. They wanted fighters. They didn't want womenizers. They didn't want drunkards. They wanted fighters. This is how Islam was constructed. This is how hadiths were constructed. You need to be a fighter, whether you want it or not. You need to be. And this is what you get rewarded for, and your rewards are going to be ginormous. But if you don't do that, oh my God, you're really going to get punished. This is the message, the central message of Islam, and that's all there is to it. And if this is one direction, it doesn't matter whether it's Quran or Hadith, it's always the same thing.
I agree with you to at least 80%.
But come on, give me 83.
Okay, well, I mean, it's probably 95%, but at least 83%. However, I'm holding a little door open for that. They might, in a kind of modified way, be a kind of historical event that really did happen, some kind of historical event that through the years was modified to fit other political needs.
Ah, okay. Because there is no historical event in the Quran or the Hadith. This is the
So
whole
is that
point.
a belief claim or a knowledge claim?
That's a knowledge claim because I don't know of any. I have not come across a single one of them. Nothing.
Wasn't there supposedly someone in a court of one of the first free rightly guided caliphs that kept on coming out with so many hadiths? The caliph actually forbid him from coming out of anymore.
Yeah, this is also Hadith.
Who is it?
No. Okay, Faye, to answer your question, the answer is nobody knows. We have remember there were 400,000 of these. And then what happened is they were sort of trimmed down. They were culled, and then they were pruned, and then they were massaged, and then they were changed, and then this and this and this. So the answer is actually nobody knows. Everybody has their pet theory and their pet hypothesis and their pet model, but nobody really knows.
Yeah, I was more.
Sorry,
I was just inquiring about more of their claim of their science of Istads, which is, they've got a proper chain going all the way to the original Sahabas. Is there anything
bullshit.
else? Is there anything else in the history of literature or writing books and all where we've got some parallel of this kind of science at all? Is there anything out there?
Sure, it's known as Chinese whispers.
Well, I mean, I think it's you have like the Talmud, and there are. I mean, like back in the days, you have to remember that oral traditions were much more common. So you had like that. This exists like all through the ancient world. So even like in India, for example, guys memorize the.
Bhagavad Gita,
yeah, and the Gita, or they memorize, or Buddhists memorize Pali Canon, and then they say, okay, I memorized this from this monk, and that monk remembered that from his monk, and that monk remembered that from that monk, and then they write it down. And I don't think they are lying all the time. I mean,
Yeah, but hang on, is there a grain of truth to Moses? No, but yet every one of these books contains stories from within Moses. So is there a grain of truth there? No.
Not
These
that.
are based on fables and legends and myths, like the dragons. I mean, everybody talks about dragons. Has anybody ever seen a dragon? No. But there are entire books, movies, songs, I don't know what, about dragons.
Okay. We can think about dragons. Say that a guy called Niels says that I think I once saw a dragon, or at least it looked kind of a dragon. It was out of the sea, and I couldn't really see it, but it was kind of like a dragon. And I just smoked some magic mushrooms, and it kind of looked like a dragon. And then he tells that to his son, who's called Knut. And Knut says, actually, my father, he said that there was a dragon on the sea. And then he says that to his son, and his son can be called Sven. And Sven says, actually, my grandfather, he saw a huge dragon. I think it was kind of blue color and with giant wings, 4 wings. And then he says his, and you see what I'm saying? It develops in that way. Does that mean that Niels really saw a dragon? No, that he didn't really say that, but still, the chain in itself might be true.
Yes, this is what I'm saying. But you don't know. I mean, Xerxes and Haman. I mean, Haman suddenly pops up in Egypt. Does that mean that he really existed? No. Can we reject the notion that he existed? Also, no. We don't know whether somebody like that existed. Did somebody really try to build a tower in Babylon? We don't know. We haven't found the foundations or anything, but it's possible. So there's no big deal in saying, I do not know. It's just that the funny thing is theists can't do that.
No, theists come with a claim that the tower was built in Babylon. And so what's your response to
that's
that?
what I'm saying.
I claim the tower was built in Babylon. What do you say to my claim, Stops?
I said, bullshit, I don't buy it. Prove it to me. Until then, I'm sorry, I do not believe it.
Cool, so you don't accept it, in other words.
I don't accept it. No, why should I accept it? Bring me a reason to accept it and I'll accept it. Before then, I will not.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, part of the Tower of Babylon is the idea that because we tried to build a tower so high, we actually reached heaven. But one of the things God did to ensure that this would never happen again is that he divided us into different peoples and did some magic to make sure that we all had different languages, which is the reason why we all speak different languages. And yet anyone who actually traces the origins and history of language can see that's bullshit.
Okay, Fee, does that answer your question?
No, not really. I mean, I was more looking towards what would have been. So I'm just trying to put myself in that time frame and just thinking about what would actually make me record individual person's name going back all the way back to, say, 7th century and saying that this is authentic. They could have just got away with just saying, yes, this is coming from Muhammad and this is what the Prophet said. Why do they have to build up a whole, like a chain of transmission? If there is one, I'm not really sure. That's why I'm asking you guys.
No, they're not.
Is there a chain of transmission where we know from this family to that family, from this son to the father to son, it goes all the way?
I would assume.
They're just names.
I actually think they were sincere. I think Bukhari and these guys, they
One at a time.
There's no name. They just invented a name and they invented some years and they said this was Muhammad's hairdresser. He told his daughter, she told her, I don't know, her grandchild, and that is it. That's
So
all
you're
you
saying-
get. You can't
I'm not
verify
sure that he's... Look, Bukhari was a real historical person. I think he
Absolutely,
existed.
I agree.
Okay, so he traveled around, and you have to remember that traveling in those days is very dangerous. So he probably risked his life to gain this knowledge. So
So did the brother Grimm.
Well, okay, yeah, but now I'm talking about his sincerity here. Okay,
The brothers Grimm are very sincere.
no, I can talk about the brother Grimm another time. That's a whole story of itself. Okay. Sincere, depends what you mean. The stories that they collected, did they really believe that these are real, true, that they all are?
That's not the point. Did
Germanic.
Bukhari really believe this?
I think that Bukhari was sincere in his attempt to find authentic hadiths. However, I don't think that he really managed to do that. But I
He
think
failed, exactly.
I think he failed, but I think he really wanted to find a kind of science for this. So that was...
Excuse me, how do you know this?
Oh my goodness. What do you mean by no?
Sorry to interrupt, guys.
Can't you just say that it's my belief in... No, of course, I don't know, but I think it's reasonable if you... How do you define reasonable?
Can I ask, is there a book or something? I haven't obviously gone into hadiths. I've just looked at Sahih Bukhari once. So is there a book or where it tells you this chain of transmission?
Yes.
So there is a book we can
There are
go and look.
many...
There's plenty.
Plenty of books. One interesting guy that devoted his whole life, now that I see that Ike is here, is Sheikh Albani. He really went deep into this and tried to understand the knowledge of the
science of
chains.
hadith.
What's the time? What's the year we're looking?
He died in late 90s.
Oh, okay.
I think it's don't remember exactly when.
I was hoping more from like 1400s and all.
Yeah, but back then but this is a long history, and it's very interesting history. And there has been like Western Orientalists have made an attempt to, I don't remember the exact names of the books or the authors, but there are such books.
I actually thought Albani is like 900 years old, because the people did this over 5 centuries or something. Because the Hadiths, remember, the first time they were recorded was 300 years after the events.
Yeah, that's what I was more hoping, that Hadith written after like 300 years would have those transmission chains. If it doesn't have it right at the start, somebody else fabricating them later on doesn't really count as in
Look,
anything.
Well, in that case,
there's a guy in Holland who came up with this graph where he showed. Oh, I think Ike maybe he actually has the source. I think he has the name. There's a Dutch guy who came down with the graph, and he showed that like 60% of all the hadiths have a bottleneck of maybe 3 people. And Abu Huraira, I mean, listen to hadith, half of them are by Abu Huraira. So it's incredible. It's not possible for this to have any credibility. You can't. You have to reject it outright.
It's kind of funny. I made a video. If you look at my video, no transitive disease, there is. If I don't know if this Dutch guy said that Abu Huraira is the bottleneck, but if he is, you should look at that. There is no transitive disease video. Anyway,
sorry, it was Klingshaw. He had the diagram. Klingshaw went into this. He found this. I'm sorry, Ike. It was Klingshaw. I mistook you.
Yeah, Klingshaw.
Oh, I looked at his videos, but couldn't find that video unless it was a blog post.
No,
Klingshaw deleted everything.
He has deleted. What a pity.
No, I'm talking about when I used to follow him when he was here.
But no, he came up, and we did this on one of the Jinn&Tonic shows. He actually introduced the book as a topic on one of the shows, where he said, this is the Dutch guy, this is the research that he did, and he showed, and this is why I remember this so vividly, because he showed the graphs of the bottlenecks, and that almost all the hadiths go back to 4 people.
And are these 4 people like the Sahabas or living in that?
There's no such thing as the Sahaba. You need to say goodbye to this concept that there was a Muhammad, that you had Sahabas, you had all these things. There is no evidence that Muhammad existed. There is no evidence that any of these guys existed. This is a story, just like Jesus and the 12 disciples. They didn't really exist. These were figureheads. They were characters in a book.
Can I give you
to show people?
Can I give you one plausible figure so that you can? I'm not saying that this is exactly what happened, but it's one plausible figure that maybe you can wrap your head around what happens. So the Arabs conquered a lot of lands, just random Arabs that because the Byzantines and the Persians had been at war with each other for a long time, and they got weak because of this. So then the Arabs not descended, but they went out of the deserts, and then they conquered a lot of lands, and then they realized, what are we going to do with all this, and how are we going to control it? And back in those days, you control things by having a religious authority. So they said, okay, this is from God, and they probably got this idea from, for example, the Byzantines and Constantine and all this. So then they said, okay, we have to have our own religion. And then they later on produced this myth of Mecca, probably. There was probably no Mecca, but we need to have a sanctuary that is independent of the sanctuaries in Jerusalem. So they invented Mecca. And when they invented Mecca, they probably also had kind of vaguely invented the figure of Muhammad, and because they invented that, they had to invent a lot of stories about him, and then it just spinned on. But the main event that started this was actually the invasions.
So I kind of agree with the part of the story which you have mentioned, but what I do get then is again these manuscripts, which are Quranic manuscripts, which are like in the Birmingham one, which dates back to sort of that 7th century time period.
No,
so
no,
it,
no, no,
it
no,
was
no, no.
all later
Fee.
Well,
fabricated.
no.
That's not right. You need to differentiate.
What the Birmingham, what the Birmingham Quran manuscript does is actually show the entire timetable of what we thought was Islamic history is not what everyone thought it was, and not what scholars have taught.
But even like the Quran, even if the Quran existed before the Arab conquests, or at least part of the Quran, I mean that's not impossible. They're also like in the big. If you look at the earliest sources, there are like people debating whether Surah Al-Baqarah is part of the Quran or is it like. So there may be. And if you read the Quran in Arabic, especially, you kind of get the feeling that it's not the same author all the time. It's kind of different styles. It's like certain surahs. It's like you have this feeling when you read. Say that you take an author like Jean-Paul Sartre in one chapter, and then an author like
Stevenson.
Whatever, Strindberg in one, and then like you invent a figure and say that this is all written by Niels, but these Niels seem to be kind of different. He doesn't use the same style and so on. So I think the different parts of the Quran. I think there are some parts of the Quran that are very old.
Exactly.
Especially those.
Who say it's a cocktail?
Yeah.
That's what I sort of have in my understanding as well, that the Quran, there's this guy at Speaker's Corner, Jay Smith, he comes up with this, that it was all based on the Gnostic Christian writings. So the Quran maybe is actually coming from those Gnostic Christians who had slightly different understanding of how Christianity came into being.
No,
and
it's more Jewish. It's more Jewish. The Quran is 80% Judaism and 20% Christianity.
Yeah. So the Quran predates the time frame was given for Muhammad's life. Probably
no, opposite. No. you have little manuscripts. You have texts with Quranic messages, which date from the 6th century. In other words, before Muhammad was born. And then what happened is all this got compiled around the 8th, 9th, 10th century. The first real Quran that we have is only in 9th, 10th century. All these others, Tashkent, all these others in Sana'a, they are not complete Qurans. The only first complete Quran is much, much later than that.
But they do say the one in Sanam, is it 90%? They do say it's kind of within that 1st century time period.
No, you can't. No.
The
dating that you get is based on the ornaments on the side, because the material itself, which is it's not pergament, it's not papyrus, it's something in between. They tried to analyze the ink, they tried to analyze the material, and that doesn't give them anything constructive or conclusive, because remember, you always get a range, a time range, which can be as much as 100 years. So you still don't know where you are exactly. You can only say we have an approximate age for that paper or for that material that was used or the ink that was used, but you still don't know when it was used, when it was written. So you need to differentiate between the age of the material, the age of the ornaments on the side. If somebody draws a mosque which is half complete, does that mean it was written while the mosque was half complete, or was it written at the time when the guy remembered that the mosque was half complete? So you're talking about logics now.
There's another thing. The Sana'a scripture has not been released yet.
Well, we have a couple of photos. I mean, the palimpsests that Puin from Saarbrücken, that he found there, some of them have been released. I have some from I have here the hidden origins of Islam, and this is exactly Orlik and Gert Coyne.
So that is one thing. I mean, I have a theory, but maybe this is completely wrong. But that during the reign of Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan, certain surahs was added.
Exactly.
So I have this suspicion that, for example, Surah At-Tawbah, or at least part of Surah At-Tawbah, originated in the reign of Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan, and maybe even from a particular guy, this very interesting guy in history, which I think is one of this Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. I think he has played a much greater part in the history of Islam than people think.
That could be.
And I wish I could go back in a time machine and see.
Yeah, but then it goes back to the reign of the caliph and when his personal desires.
Yeah, but because that was the most, the period that fits into Surah At-Tawbah mentality.
Yes, I agree.
Most.
And it makes the most sense logically too.
Just one last question on this. This is your theory, so Stop, and yours as well, Abu. Where are the scholars? Are there any known scholars who are sort of saying that this could be the case? Or because obviously her name who passed away last year.
Krona.
Patricia
Krona.
She used to say that earlier with the Hagarism and all, but then she changed her view apparently. And then are there any other?
No. Cook and
Krona.
Cook and Krona brought out the book Hagarism, where they questioned everything. Remember, they are revisionists. They only look at the facts, and they question the existence of Muhammad. And they said, if we go and base it on something, then what do we need to substitute Muhammad with? What actually happened? And they came up with a theory, which they never. It's not true that they went back. They got a lot of flack from Muslims. And what happened is a lot of Muslims told them or accused them of being partial from now on. And to preserve that partiality, they said, well, other explanations are possible. That's all they did.
Right. So are there any current scholars like Angelica Newworth, who used to sort of study with Patricia Krona? She
never went into that area.
Sorry?
She never went into that area.
Correct,
As far as I know, I have not seen Angelica saying anything about the origins of the Quran and the historical circumstances, because she only goes according to the text, because she speaks ancient Arabic, she speaks Aramaic, she speaks Syriac, and she only compared the Quran in itself, but never in the context of history. As far as I know, this is only what I know from Angelica Neuwer.
So are there any revisionist scholars at the moment sort of supporting you, the theories which you guys are claiming?
Which theory?
That, Quran is like a pre-existing material which was before the time of Muhammad.
Yes,
if there was
plenty.
one. Yeah, okay.
Yes, that's there plenty.
Please.
But
There's plenty.
but I don't like.
I think that the Bible will be a good example of that.
If you go to Orlik and Twain, for example, they do exactly that.
Sorry, come again, Sob.
Okay, do you know Karl-Heinz Orlik?
No,
Professor
sorry.
in Berlin.
No.
And Gert Poin, Professor in Saarbrücken.
Right, okay.
They, for example, propagate this.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, but like the questions you are asking now, Fi, I think those
specific,
questions are like the most interesting questions actually. It's just that it's so hard to.
Okay, but Abu, you have to admit there are no mainstream scholars, and definitely no Muslim scholars who propagate this.
No.
There's
But
a guy.
the questions themselves I think are very interesting.
What's his name? Sven. Shit. He's a Muslim actually, and he's.
This.
I forgot his name. I have a block. Sven something. He actually goes and questions this, but without providing an answer. He just asks questions and says, "Okay, Why do we think we know this? Why do we think we believe this?
Sven Kalish.
Kalish, thank you very much. Oh, you're an angel. Exactly. He's the guy who questions all this.
Kalish, is it? Is there any?
Kalisch.
Also, Fee, you have to keep in mind, I'm sure that Stop and Abdul could correct me if I'm wrong on this, but just from my very limited research into this whole idea of looking at Islam skeptically really seems to be a new thing. Most scholars traditionally were Muslim, and they weren't even scholars, they were theologians. And when it came to Western scholars, they never really questioned it. They just sort of went along with what the sheikhs said. So all these people now, like Tom Holland, Shadow of the Sword, this is like a recent development.
Yeah, I think you can. I think Hagerism is like a kind of milestone. The oldest, like Orientalists, I mean, their kind of science were really mumbo jumbo in comparison. But the problem is that because the standard narrative is so strong, and it has made it so hard to get to the real facts. You see what I'm saying? It's I think more people should research these things, because if you look at other like there are other periods of history that go back much further back in time, where we have much more detailed information on what happens. And this is such an important period for human history. So I think it's such a pity that we don't know.
When it comes to specifically Islamic claims, both Quranic claims and Hadith claims, one of the things you have to keep in mind is whether or not anyone else is talking about this. Islam makes so many claims, and it involves so many different people. Do any of those people mention it?
Yeah, so I looked into what other writings were there sort of supporting the claims which Islam makes, which were around that time frame. And obviously there are few obvious examples which I guess everybody knows. One was that treaty which apparently Muhammad did with the Jews.
Constitution of Medina.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. So that gets thrown in. There are not many other sort of documentation from that time frame which do support the claim of Islam. So that's another, like a kind of black hole or gap in the history, which is really hard to then investigate or research, to be honest.
Yeah, and especially when you look at history from all over the world, the history of Egypt, of Rome, of Greece, of China, of Japan, you always have contributing history. You don't just have like the Vikings talking about invading Spain or England. You have like, you actually have records of the Caliphate and of the Christian empires saying, oh, wow, these fucking Vikings came and did this and that. And then you see it corresponds with what the Vikings are saying. So that gives it some legitimacy. It's kind of like, the way I explained it to someone before is, imagine that you find a document from like 2,000 years ago from ancient Greece, and it's this astronomer that's gazing at the stars, and he describes a specific event. Now, if he's the only one saying this, it might have happened, but there's no reason to think it is. But, if you go to Japan, and 2,000 years ago, at the exact same time, you've got some Japanese bloke looking at the stars, and he describes the exact same thing. That is two different people with no connection whatsoever, who really could not have conspired together to do any sort of deception, and they're both saying the same thing at the same time. That gives it a little bit of legitimacy.
But if
just like if the Vikings say, oh, such and such date we went, we invaded the Caliphate, we invaded Rome, and then the Roman Church and the Caliphate is saying the exact same thing. So who is saying the same thing as what Islam says?
Yeah, you don't have much parallel sort of documentation to prove. But that doesn't mean it didn't happen. It's the same case with other older scriptures, I guess, from India as well. I don't think there's much proof which is there for these big battles of Ramayana and Mahabharata. They are just
Well, some of them, some of the idea of proof actually. I mean, some of it you just have to use your own common sense and your own logic. Like earlier when you first joined, Stock mentioned that Zoroastrians and Yazidis pray 5 times a day. Now, I mean, when Islam first started, it was for all intents and purposes an Arab imperialistic regime. And then, it just so happens that when this is expanding to other territories and it's trying to become a collective, oh, look, it's adopting certain things. Oh, look, there's a hadith here that just so happens to say, oh, in Islam, you have to pray 5 times a day. When does that hadith come? Oh, this hadith came right around the time they were trying to convert Zoroastrians who pray 5 times a day. It's exactly the same like Christians sort of co-opting the winter solstice and saying, oh, that's in our religion as well. This is when we celebrate Christ's birth.
Yeah, but don't.
I mean, there's other ways to look at it as well. You look at whether or not what Islam says actually aligns with reality. For instance, when we know that the hadiths were supposedly written centuries after Muhammad's death, one example that I often use is the night journey, the story of when Muhammad rode the Buraq. Now, it says that Muhammad went to the Grand Mosque and from there shot up to heaven. This mosque did not even exist then. It only existed 100 years after Muhammad's supposed death. And when you look at the hadiths and you see that they were written centuries later, well, why is he writing this, saying Muhammad went to this, if it didn't even exist then? Well, because it exists in his time, and he obviously assumed that it existed in Muhammad's time as well. So there is part of it is just using your brain.
Yeah, I think on that one, I might be wrong, but I think in this documentary, or at least in his book, Quranic Geography, Dan Gibson, because he says the Mecca is not located where it is currently, but it's in close to Petra. It wasn't that far away from Jerusalem in that sense. So that night journey could have been just like a land journey, but not from Mecca, which is quite far from Jerusalem, but from Petra. So you could do a up and down sort of journey from Petra to Jerusalem within, say, a day or so. So it could have been that this got misinterpreted as a night journey from, using the Buraq and, flying up and then coming down. So it could have been,
but then he got,
I know this
about describing Muhammad going to a building which didn't even exist at that time. So there's not really a way to get around that unless you want to claim that the Buraq is also a time machine.
I remember that Clinshore had an argument against Petra as being.
Yeah, and I agree with him. I'm not a big fan of
I don't remember what the argument was.
Petra, the thing is, you didn't have the facilities that are claimed in the hadith and in all the stories, in the biography, and it doesn't match. There are too many mismatches to be Petra. That's why I'm not a great fan of Petra.
I got quite convinced with this documentary. It might be wrong, but because it sort of linked some of the verses from the Quran to this region in Petra. It's called the Sacred City. If anybody is interested, it's called the Sacred City. I think it's there in Vimeo, and it's a Quranic Geography as well by Dan Gibson, and he relates quite a lot of things from Quran itself to Petra, especially the existence of the 2 mountains.
It fits into Safa wal Marwa.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, into that geography.
But let's just even if the region as a whole, that region in the Levant fits the Quranic story much better.
Yeah.
So even if it's not Petra, it might still be somewhere.
Exactly.
I agree.
With Sodom and Gomorrah and all this other stuff. Yeah.
And remember, if that city where in Tom Holland's documentary, he was walking around in some ruins from.
Correct. Yeah.
What
That was
city was
Iraq.
that? No. It was
Was it
quite
Jordan?
near. It was quite near
I can't remember.
the Sea of Galilee, I think.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Where he was
No,
saying
not the Sea of Galilee. The Dead Sea, I think.
Yeah, well, he was claiming that where the Sodom and Gomorrah sort of used to live, right? That city.
That was next to the Dead Sea, yeah. But nobody knows that either. Come on, I mean, nobody knows where this is.
And I mean, it may be that as we said, the whole of Quran may not come from one place. So there may be several guys, and maybe one of the guys was close to the Dead Sea, where this Sodom and Gomorrah thing happened.
Yeah.
And maybe one guy was from Petra. So it may be several places. And
So
maybe one guy was from Iraq.
Abu, because you've read it in Arabic, do you think there's a clear difference in the form of poetry, or the way it has been pronounced? Is it different at different places, the Quran itself, in terms of how it's
definitely.
spoken?
Different styles.
Different styles.
As I said, I compared it to, like, say that you take one chapter from a book of Jean-Paul Sartre and one chapter from a book of Strindberg, just that it's the same language. But like say that you have a translation of Jean-Paul Sartre in English, and you take one chapter from one book, and then one from Strindberg and one from any writer, and then but you don't know who they are, but you can see that the style is different. The style here doesn't fit the style here. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's very hard. That's very
Well, just to give an example of what Abu is talking about, Fi, can you speak Arabic?
No, I can't. No.
Okay, but I'm assuming you've read the Quran.
I've read it, the English version.
Okay, would you believe that this is from the Quran? O you who believe, bend not to passion's sway, for the heart is deceitful above all things, but Allah is all-knowing, wise.
Yeah, I would assume so. Yeah.
Right, I just completely stole that from Shakespeare, and I just like, oh, you who believe. I ripped that from Shakespeare and just styled it in a similar way to the Quran.
Yeah,
So
I get it.
that right there is what Abu. That right there is what Abu is talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
But as I said,
We should stop.
If you know the Arabic, and you see, it's very hard to explain, but it's so different in style. You don't like.
Come on, even in the translation, you can see it.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, if you look at the 108, 110, the staccato, compare that to the second. Come on, it's completely different. Read
It's kind of like putting
111 Abu Lahab and compare that to the fourth one. It's worlds apart.
It's kind of like comparing Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg.
Who?
Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, they're both rappers. They both talk about similar things.
Okay.
It's the same genre, it's the same style, but you know, like if you were unfamiliar with rap and you had a load of people telling you this was the same person, you might believe it. But if you look at it on a critical level, if you study the rhythm, the rhyme, it obviously comes from two different people.
Okay, guys, the boss said we need to stop. Ike, do you have a new one, or is this just a link to the old existing hadiths? Did you make a new one by any chance, or no?
Oh, I have some news.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Do you want to quickly
I
do
have a-
the news now or after?
Do your bit now quickly, Raven, because it's the hadith. and then
30,
we're finished.
29, 28, 27,
Okay,
26.
right. So,
27.
as everyone is aware of CAR, yes, the Council of American Islamic Relations.
CAIR.
Yeah.
CAIR.
Right. Well, a Texas lawmaker is asking mosque leaders to pledge support for the safety of ex-Muslims in a mailed survey being condemned by CAIR. is, and you know what? I'll just put the link here, and you can post it if you want to hurry up. But that is basically the gist. A lawmaker is saying, right, sheikhs, imams, like, work with me to make sure that former Muslims are safe. And Care is like, no, reject it, ignore it.
That's sick.
If you just want to put that link in
okay, but this is Fox News. I mean, you know, like, yeah.
I know, but it's funny.
It is funny, yeah.
And also,
okay, Abu, hit it.
As far as I know, it's true.
Okay, narrated by Abu Dar.
And not Huraira? What's wrong with him?
I don't know.
He had his day off.
But this is an important hadith. This is, if you read Surah Yasin, this is explained Surah Yasin. Anyway, narrated by Abu Dhar. I was sitting behind the messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was riding a donkey while the sun was setting. He asked, "Do you know where this sets?" I replied, "Allah and His Apostle knows best." He said, "It sets in a spring of warm water." Hamia.
They had jacuzzis in those days?
And Sheikh Albani says this is Sahih.
Of course he would.
Cool. Thanks very much, Abu. Thank you to everybody here, Fee, Raven, and Stops, for definitely a spirited evening's chat. I'm sure we'll have more conversation next week. Any particular topics that you guys might be interested in? Otherwise, I'll just come up with something as I look at things over the week, and then hopefully we can discuss.
Come on, the most important, the most interesting, the most spiritualized discussions are always from Speaker's Corner at the moment. Really, I enjoy these so much.
I'll be down on Sunday, so I don't know if you're going down through.
Okay, I am at the moment actually preparing a script for a video that I found on a German channel, where the guy exactly talks about the origin of hadiths, and he claims, and he makes absolute claims, that these are all inspired by Muhammad personally via an angel who somehow brought God's spirit into this, projected into Muhammad, and this is why whatever Muhammad says is holy. And this is why the hadiths as a incarnation or manifestation of God through the person of Muhammad should be seen as part of scripture.
Cool. Well, let us know once it's up. Send us all a link, or if it's
no. My thing is going to be in German. I mean, that's no good.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not going to help. Yeah. Cool.
No, but I would like to know, what is the sentiment of people towards incorporating hadiths into scripture?
Probably already been done.
Well, is that a viable solution? Is it an option? Can you do that? In as much as how much do hadiths contradict the Quran, and how much do they contradict one another? Is it possible to actually put hadiths into scripture and make it part and parcel of the well, let's call it the texts, the holy texts of Islam?
I will be amazed if that hasn't already been done.
No, it's being done at the moment, and this is why I'm questioning it, and this is why I'd love to.
No, I mean originally, the actual Quran we have today.
Maybe a topic for next week to talk about then. Not my area of expertise, so you guys can definitely have a good conversation.
No, ask people in the whatchamacallit, in the discussion area of London.
Speaker's Corner.
Not my area of expertise, so I can say what.
But you can just ask them and see what they said in the recording.
Rob, can you ask somebody from Speaker's Corner to join us on this chat, if anybody's interested?
Yeah, I can ask them, but they won't come. Very unlikely they'll come on here. But I can ask the question. Yeah, I'll say, hey, we've got a thing every Friday night. Yeah, are you available? Yeah, I can ask the question. I mean, it'd be great to have Muslims on here, but it's rare, from what I understand.
They don't have balls.
All right, guys, thank you so much to everybody on here. Thanks to all the viewers, and we will see you next Friday with whatever we come up with to have a chat about.
And if you have questions,
thanks, guys.
Join us, please. If you
Yes,
know
please do.
something, just come here, and we don't bite. We will treat you nicely. It's not everybody's like me. So we have very nice people here who will answer your questions. So please do come here and ask.
On that note of
Okay.
a warm welcome to those who wish to join us, I will say good night and see you guys next Friday. Thanks a lot, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.